You, me, when we were kids, while walking, sometimes we fall. That fall is a fail. We stand up and walk again.
Walk it off, man.
So we fall. Each time we fall, that is known as a fail.
What is this stuff?
A dip. So Amy is no more running.
She retired.
She retired,
Yeah.
and she was the youngest among all.
Michaela's youngest.
Michaela?
Yeah.
Michaela is 45.
Oh. I don't think she's that old, is she?
No, 42. 42.
I think
Her son is 22.
I think Amy's about 45 or 6.
Yeah. I am the oldest among all of you.
She is. No, you are? I don't know.
I am the 56. Game over.
I'm only like 26.
You look super young than your age.
Happen.
You know, the two meeting in the same day, it is exhausting.
Exhausted.
Especially, she is coming from a work.
I didn't even work today.
What's in here? I'm sure you do.
How you doing?
I'm doing.
Doing good.
Cheesecake.
Yeah, I think I'm going to eat first.
You eat cheesecake?
You have a 25
All right, so I will move to have agenda item 9.2 be our next on the agenda because we have Kent here this evening.
Second.
All right, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Kent, that's a horrible sweater.
I love it.
I'll second that. Thank you. I'm Kent Wyman. I'm the Buildings and Grounds Supervisor. I was asked to discuss some of our energy report card. We've got Sally Turpin works for Focus on Energy, and she kind of presented us with the handout that you guys got. It kind of discusses what we went over the last, well, actually we started back with the big turnover was all the LED lighting we did in the district. At that same time, we did a big project with Upper 90 that was kind of encapsulating the buildings as well as looking for different efficiencies as far as we did a lot of freak drives or slow starts to a lot of our equipment. Since then, we've continued down this path of trying to lower our energy usage. I think if we can go to the data wrangler. I think I'll touch on that here in a bit, but the data wrangler was the system we put on at each school where it kind of tracks the dent meters were put on where the power comes in, and we're able to track where all our power goes. In doing this, we have been able to dial back a lot of like the HVAC systems in the building. We will pinch minutes in the morning, like, okay, they're coming in at 7 o'clock. When can we get away with starting the heating up? So 6:30 is about when we start up the heating in the buildings. The data wrangler has kind of been able to track not just what we know we're using, but we can also find like deficiencies in our system. So there'll be, we found an HVAC system, like one piece of equipment that was running overnight and it would cycle off and on and off and on. We could not find it in our programming, but with the data wrangler, we see these spikes of electricity at night. So we found kind of hidden in some of our programming, we turned off that air handler. There's just been a lot of little things that this has been able to pick out. Up here, this kind of shows the savings for each building. Right now you've got Forest Street Elementary up, gives you like the savings for the month, the projected for your 1 year, your 5 year projected savings. Interesting from Sally, we kind of compare Forest Street to the year before. We added a chiller system. So we've kind of stayed on the same amount of electricity at Forest Street from beforehand to after, and we show a similar thing at the high school with the brand new massive chiller system that we added at the high school. We eliminated so many small rooftop units that were actually kind of on par with everything as far as our utility usage. Forest Street isn't as exciting as some of the other schools for energy savings. It shows your monthly savings. This is kind of one of the charts that's interesting to look at. We've got the, I think you actually scroll down to another one. I think we have a display. So this would be a non-school day. This shows the peak in our electricity during school. This was during Thanksgiving break on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's how much electricity we use in the blue during a non-school day. So you can just see how much we ramp up and down every day we don't have school. So when we don't have a school day, we schedule it just like an unoccupied day, and then we ride that out for those days. So we'll be doing the same thing over Christmas break, kind of just ride out those days. You can scroll down on that, Jill. You get a profile of the day. This is kind of a snapshot in. You'd have the full billing cycle, but when we zoom in, I think, so typically every day our peaks are between 11 and 1. Can you scroll up just a little bit, Jill? Mm-hmm. We went over this with Sally and we weren't sure why we had a high peak this morning at like 9 a.m. We weren't sure why, but most days pretty much we average our peak is at 11 to 1. And we're really trying, we're trying to bring that peak down between 11 and 1. There's ways we can maybe shut off some air handlers or dial back some high electric rooms, I said we might work on some scheduling next year now that we have advance notice of this, where maybe like the auto shop at the high school or the metals room at the high school isn't used during 11 and 1, if we could do scheduling around that, because that's when all of our kitchen equipment is cranking out. You can scroll down if you would, Jill. You can keep going. That'd be the full cycle. So then this is a snapshot of Red Creek, which is probably our least amount of savings in the district is Red Creek, and that is for obvious reasons. It's our newest building. It was pretty dialed in to start. It had LED lights from the get-go. You can see another snapshot of that same thing with non-school days. You can just see how much lower our electrical usage. And that is a snapshot of a day as well, and you can kind of see we peak out there between 11 and 1 o'clock. You go on to, you just kind of get the snapshots of the individual buildings. If you can keep scrolling, these are kind of more, it's snapshots of the different, this is the high school. The high school is a much larger savings. You can see $2,500 in electric savings over the year. If you keep scrolling down, we have that's another snapshot of the day, snapshot of the month. This is our solar savings. So the solar panel, the solar array was just in full capacity for this is like our first full building cycle of the solar array running. And you can see how much electricity was generated, and we have to remind ourselves this is the lowest sunshine of the year. So we're still making that much electricity in November. We're really to the doldrums of winter here, but we're expecting to see massive energy savings come March and April, possibly net zero in June running that building, so that's pretty exciting. If you scroll down, there is a chart that will show, if you can continue down, that kind of just shows like, you can see when we're making our most electricity. You can see, obviously when the sun's at its highest. It also shows like the cloudy days. This slide here is, you guys remember we talked about Fund 50? So by having the data wrangler in place, it locks onto every piece of equipment that Connie has in her kitchen. And we can take that savings and the kitchen will pay for their own electric. And the DPI recognizes this data wrangler as like the information they're receiving is true. So if you keep scrolling down, I believe we have a page of this will show you what everything in Connie's kitchen does and what it costs per day. Or per month. This is the billing period. So you'll see the big ones: walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer, almost $400 a piece to run those for the month. Then we can take this bill and Connie pays it out of her fund, and it leaves more money in the general fund for us. Yep, and this lists every piece of equipment that we have and every hour that it's used, which is pretty exciting. So not only can we use this for savings, and transfer the funds, but we also know, we can see after we accumulate some information, if any of Connie's equipment is faulting out. We will know if it's taking more electricity. It'll show right up to us. So that's pretty exciting too. We can see any of the equipment in the school, if it's all of a sudden making a jump in its demand. We know if that equipment's going awry. We know if our kitchen equipment's going awry. It's pretty cool stuff. You can scroll down. I thought we had a chart on here with the solar. There's the one I'm looking for. So this is one day at the high school, and you can see in the blue is the building load, in the green is what the utility is being charged. This is what the solar array was producing. So you can see the drop in what we are getting from the utility, directly what the building's using. And once the sun comes back out and the clouds disappear, those graphs are gonna blend right together. I'm hoping that this summer we could run the building full air conditioned and not pay $1. That's pretty cool. So that's about what I had for our data wrangler and our solar array. There's people have been quite interested in that solar array. So we have a TV screen that is getting put up in the commons of the high school. It's going to show real time what the solar array is doing at all times. Kids can kind of use that as a measure. No one can see our solar array on the roof, so the TV will be pretty cool for people to see actually what's happening real time. So that's what I had. If there's any questions.
Kent, I'm not sure the board heard about the reimbursement from WPPI.
The last time I met with Sally, she gave us a check for $10,000. So that is quite the bump in our. I was kind of waiting for my picture to come out. I know I get a picture with her coming out. So
That's for the data wrangler.
that is just for the data wrangler. And there's other things we've been using with Focus on Energy recently, like dialing in our boilers. We dial in our boilers every year. There's a rebate for that. We get a kilowatt rebate for every time we dial in the boilers. There's multiple things, and we're just trying to use that Focus on Energy as much as we can, lean on them. They have great rebates, so if we can use them, all the better, all the more savings. Go ahead, Brad.
So, well, I guess maybe this is a two-part question. So, one, maybe it's worth explaining to the board how commercial power billing works, right? The peak load and the total usage, and then follow up to that would be, have we impacted our peak load at all?
So that is the big thing. We're trying to keep, so the utilities can charge us. We have two schools that are on peak power and off-peak power, and we have two schools that we just pay the same rate all the time. So if you are one of the larger consumers, you get bumped up. So then off-peak rate is 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So when we have the schools that are on that, we try to schedule off-peak. So if we can pre-cool a building, say from 4 in the morning until 8 in the morning, and get that thing ramped up, our peak power isn't affected as much. We also, it'll take our highest consumption day, which this year, unfortunately, was August 27th or 28th. When we first started school, it was 90-some degrees and our air conditioners were out of the roof. So that's gonna be a hard one to dial back, but they take your highest day and they hold on to that for the year. Like you have to have that electricity available for us. So then we get billed at that higher rate. What we're trying to do is keep all our schools under 200 kilowatts at all time. We dial that down. And the peak time, like we said, is that 11 to 1 is always when the kitchen equipment and everything's running full tilt. If we could dial a few other things back to avoid that peak, to avoid that spike in electricity. And that'll bring our rate down across the board. And we have seen that. We actually did a really good job last spring on some of our hottest days. We knew they weren't going to be in the gyms. We shut the air handlers in the gyms off during lunch hour, and we dialed a few things back, and we just made it. And then we had August 28th, and we got killed, and we couldn't do nothing about it. So, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
How much maintenance goes into the solar system in the wintertime? I think it's a snow load on it. Do you have to remove the snow?
We don't touch it. So the heat from the solar panels themselves, we'll see. But they have it in West Salem. We looked at it. They never touched it. The heat from it just kind of slides that snow off.
Okay.
Evidently, the snow does a good job at cleaning your solar panels as well. Yeah.
So cost savings aside, this is like the future of our country, right? Like we're moving into this place where we need to be power conscious, and I feel like it would this entire process would have or is a great learning opportunity for young people. Have you had any students or opportunities for them to be involved in trying to understand and learn from it?
So that is in the works. Stevens Point, University of Stevens Point reached out, and they have they are actually going to reach out to Nicole and I this spring, and they are going to send out some of their teachers to our campus to teach our teachers. It would be on PD Day, just to show them what they can use the solar array for and some teaching tools in that. So yeah, we're reaching out to that. On your point where the solar is kind of leaning towards the future and whatnot, when meeting with Sally, she talked about how much more electricity that we've needed as a state or as a country since the 90s with all the computers and everything, but we really haven't built any new power plants because of the LED lights, because of all this energy like we're actually aware of it, energy awareness, and we've dropped. So we really haven't built any new power plants, even though we use this much more electricity. The demand is that much higher. So it's pretty crazy, pretty amazing. Anyone else?
For Kent?
All right.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks for coming, Ken.
Sorry
I'd
about
like
your
to watch
sweater.
the Vikings game.
Oh, you're a fan? I couldn't tell.
Thank you.
Cheer card.
I will, Jill.
All right, next we have 6-1, gifts and grants.
Sure, I'd like to highlight, the Co-op Credit Union did a giving tree, and so lots of hats and mittens and boots and snow pants were donated and dispersed to all of our school counselors. Jackson Correctional Institute, who was here last month, they had a different person doing a fundraiser. This time it was pizza sales for their residents, and a check for $450 was gifted to the district to the Angel Funds. Ashley All actually gifted $1,000. Ashley is connected to the board and is a Black River Falls alum, and she wanted to use that have that $1,000 used to assist Black River Falls high school students in attending field trips to different UW schools. And the cool thing about that is she connected with Compeer Financial, who was willing to match that donation. So we've received $2,000 to help offset the cost of some of our high school students going to visit UW campuses. In addition, Black River Falls Municipal Utilities read about the starting of the community education program, and they came in and donated $1,000 to get that program running. They thought they loved the idea and they wanted to support it. So there's no action needed, but wanted you to be aware.
Why Black River Falls Municipal Utilities gave us $1,000? What for?
The community education program.
For Black River?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
It was very nice.
Yeah. And also Ashley Hall for university trips, right?
Yep.
All right. Next we have the WSB convention resolutions. So we do have time. I know everyone just got this. We do have time to review this, but what happens is we elect as a board a delegate, which is our next action item, and we can instruct our delegate how to vote on any or all of these or none of these as they come before the WSB convention. If I'm explaining that correctly.
Absolutely.
So does anyone want to talk about anyone? And I know they just came out, so probably no one has really had a chance to read them. We have time to discuss in January.
Typically what's happened is the board reviews them ahead of time, and if there's any of them that you have a specific interest in, you bring it up at the meeting so that you can share your thoughts and opinions and help give some context to whoever the board elects as that delegate. So they got to you late, and so January, I'll have it on the agenda again.
All right, so I'm not seeing anyone wants to pick any of those up, so yeah, please review that, and if there's any specifics you want to talk about, be ready to talk about those in January. Next is the WSB Delegate Assembly Representative. I think Michaela is still the only one intending to attend. I know I'm not available those days. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to move that Michaela is our WSB Delegate Representative.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Michaela, you are a representative.
Thanks.
All right. 6.4 is the easement. So we've talked about this as a board, I believe. So the city is seeking grants for the foundation trail, maintenance and repair of, and because they have a small portion that crosses district property, they don't have rights to the whole thing, and so the city is seeking an easement with the district so that they can apply for grants. I don't see any downfalls to this.
It won't change any of our current activity, it will just formalize what has been happening.
The only downside would be if we suddenly decided we wanted to build a very small building on where the foundation trail exists today. So
Where is that anyways?
behind.
Yeah, go ahead.
The part that is on our space is when you are by the tennis courts and baseball field. There's a tiny little piece of that we own.
Sure. That's all you could build back there, anything like that, so.
No.
No, I mean, the foundation trail is,
We just could erect a one big statue of a tiger on that area.
Or,
So this Black River Falls city knows who they're talking to. Right.
so if there's no other questions, looking for a motion on that? I will second that. Further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? All right. Board Policy Committee Representative, Jeanette has chosen to step down from the Policy Subcommittee. Currently, and I've got to check my notes, Michaela, are you on it with me? It's you, me, and so I guess I'm looking across the room. I would like one of the three of you to volunteer, or all three of you, and we'll vote on it, but we need one more board member on that. We haven't been meeting very regularly because we are using the Neola policies and they're undergoing a very comprehensive review. But we do have a meeting scheduled, and I've got to check my calendar, January 6th, I believe is the date.
Yes.
Monday, January 6th. We will probably meet, you think 2 more times before the end of the school year, something like that. So usually they start around 4 o'clock. I know that's challenging. And it is a fair amount of reading, but looking for a volunteer that wants to read policies.
It's possible for the February. January I will be out of state.
Okay.
So if you're interested in being on the policy committee but just can't make that one meeting, you could certainly voice that.
Yeah, I cannot make that, even a regular meeting. I will let you know in the email, yeah.
Sure.
So 4 o'clock's hard.
Yeah,
That's-
the upside, yeah, I absolutely, I agree.
For me and my external commitments.
Yep.
So,
Yes. I mean, the nice thing is only three times, but yes, it is 4 o'clock, so.
So part of the reason it was at 4 is because there is a staff member representative. If the board would like to move it later and see if we can still find teacher or staff representative that is willing to do it later, that is certainly an option.
in my opinion, it's key to keep staff involved with that committee, so I don't want to put a strain on them.
And that's the nice thing is with the 4 o'clock, they're coming here right after their school day ends.
Need a third, it says 2 or 3 board members, so.
So are you want to hold off if the car?
I want to hold it off for a while.
Okay.
He is available 24/7. He doesn't do anything.
This is, yes.
Come on, Nick.
So that it is not a board. It is a president appointed position. So if any of the three of you are interested, just shoot me an email and we can talk about it.
Sure.
But,
That's fair.
we can continue as we are for now.
So, Brett, is it okay if I make a motion for something out of a situation what I have seen?
Is it on the agenda?
It just came up in the board meeting.
Okay, so it has to be on the agenda.
It is not an agenda, but it is some, I don't know how to pronounce, you broke the policy. You and Shirley argued with a person who delivered the comments. So that is violation of a policy. So I would like to place a motion that Brett Dobb and Shirley Severson have broke the school policy to engage in the argument with the people who were delivering the comment.
I believe the policy, just to be clear, is a substantive discussion, and I don't believe that I was substantive in that, but.
This is your second time. Last time you did it.
So that notwithstanding, there is a motion before the board.
Yes, thank you. So this is my motion, I want to file a motion, if anybody second it, so we can discuss it.
I'll second it.
The agenda for next.
Yeah,
I think Robert's rules would say it should be put on an agenda
yes.
for future meeting is what I think, because that's the whole purpose of a public agenda, is that.
It just shows up, it just happened.
Right.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but the whole purpose of the agenda is that the public has a reasonable knowledge of what's going to be discussed at a board meeting. So for example, whatever that agenda item was called, then anybody who sees the agenda posted would know that that was going to be an item for discussion at the next meeting. So that's my opinion on Robert's Rules. I am not the Robert's Rules expert. That is all of.
Yeah,
But the motion has been filed, the second has been done.
So
And
it
I
should
don't
be
think
on
we
the
can-
agenda next
Yep,
month.
I think we need to put that on the agenda for January. So
But I
please,
believe it's
I
probably-
would not be available in January,
okay. But we will,
do it in February maybe?
we can put it in the February agenda then if that's what we would like. Okay. Next, item 6.6, Amy Blackdeer has reached out to some of you individually, I know. Her family is experiencing a medical situation. Without going into too much detail, she's expressed to me that she supports our work, is continuing to be involved with her children and their education and the district, and wants to remain involved, but she needs to step away from the board for the remainder of her term and take care of her family, and I think we can all understand that. So with that being said, there is a policy, and it was in your packet, on how a board member is appointed. So to be clear, the seat is what's elected. So we'll talk about timing here in a moment, but that board member will be seated, well, just to say for argument's sake, right, February 1st, that term extends until April of 2027, when that seat would have been elected. So she was elected at the same time as Casey and Michaela. That seat extends that same amount of time. Okay, so there's 2.5 years left on that seat. So the normal procedure of this, and per policy, right, is that we place a notice in the paper. I believe it's appropriate to place that notice twice, and then we and we're going to talk about timing in a moment, right? So we'll choose the timing of those papers, and then we'll choose a closing date and time for that opening, and then we will, again, we'll talk timing in a little bit here. We will call likely a special meeting, right? We'll plan it tonight, and then we will. There's a procedure that evening where usually the applicants supply a letter of intent or a letter of interest and a resume, and they give a short spiel on why they want to be a board member, and then we vote within the board. So there's not, this doesn't go to an election. This is voted by the 6 seated board members. So questions on process first?
So Amy has nothing to do with it then, you're saying?
No, Amy is no longer on the board. She's already resigned, so, yeah. So if there's no questions on process, if everyone could get out their calendars, and with with Christmas coming up, I am really hesitant, although it is the will of the board, to run the notice next week. So my feeling is we should run it January 1st and 8th. That would be 2 weeks in the paper. Then we would close the posting either Friday the 17th or Monday the 20th. I'm good with either one of those. And then we're probably looking at scheduling a special board meeting the week of January 27th. But I don't know how anyone's, I think we need to have all six seated board members at that meeting. So I don't know what it has planned.
I will come back in Wisconsin, January 27th, yeah.
The 27th
Yeah,
will be back?
I think so, but I will let you know in the email, my schedule for January. I have a very important things to do.
Okay.
Are others all available on the 27th?
Is that, Jeanette is available the 27th, Michaela? Michaela's checking.
In the evening?
Probably at 5:30 or 6 o'clock start time, whatever. Casey is yes.
I am 90% yes. So a special meeting you are saying?
Yes.
Brad, I'm sorry, you said paper January 1st and 8th and close the posting.
Either the 17th or the 20th. First I want to set the board meeting, and then I want to kind of work backwards from that.
5:30, right?
We can. I'm kind of waiting on
I make that work.
the 27th. Nick, 27th. 5:30.
Me too. I'm in.
5:30. 5:30.
Okay, yeah, 5:30 is
5:30 works. Okay. So, Marty, the 27th at 5:30 for that special meeting.
Should you give them till the 24th to express interest?
We can.
I don't see why it would hurt anything.
So it was 24th of Friday.
Yes.
I think it's just, yeah, to give Marty the time to
Yep.
pull the information together for us, it'd probably be, maybe
Do
we
we
cut it off
normally
on
close those
Wednesday.
at 4 p.m., Marty? Is that?
Yeah, because that's when our office closes.
Go till Wednesday or something, and give her a couple days to get information pulled together for us.
Will the board want those resumes in like a special meeting packet to review ahead of time?
It would be nice.
Be great to have that.
Just to take
put
that
over
into
a week
account
to
when
look
you're
at over
setting
the
the-
weekend.
So
So
Yep.
maybe do the close on the 22nd.
is that?
Is that Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then those would come out via email, and you guys would pick up your printed packets then on Thursday the 23rd. Does that works? Okay, so we're gonna close the posting at
We
4.
should pick up a packet.
No, we get email, just like they get their board packet.
Sorry.
So we're gonna close the posting on Wednesday, January 22nd at 4 p.m. And then the special board packet will be available sometime on the 23rd. Marty will be in contact via email. Do we want, because that gives us more time for the closing, do we want to do like the 1st and the 15th or the 8th and the 15th for the paper? Strong feelings either way.
Could I just also just note, I always think that it's really weird timing when people have to get their papers into Marty to be on the ballot in April. It sneaks up that first Tuesday in January. And so I was concerned that people might muddy these two processes together. Because the holiday, it is actually Tuesday, January 6th. By 5:30, those papers are in, and that is noticed in the paper as well, right? That regular,
Correct.
do you know the dates that is in the paper?
Not off the top of my head, I don't. I have it noted downstairs in my
Okay,
information, but
I just want the board to know that notice is also in the paper prior to January. I just did my spotlight on schools on it last Friday to let people
Say
know.
that again.
So,
Just one more time.
yep, so people who leave this vacancy out of it, people who are running in the regular school board election, in order to be on the ballot in April, the timing is the first Tuesday in January. I just think that's really weird when we just get back from Christmas and suddenly that's due. And so that is posted in the newspaper as well, just so that people might see both the board vacancy and the board election and get confused by the two. So I just wanna clarify that is also in the paper earlier.
So I guess a good point, if you were to wait and post the 8th and the 15th.
Yeah,
that one would
exactly
be
what I was
expired
thinking.
at that point already.
Right.
And
Save
On to the next.
do we want to do the 8th and the 15th in the paper?
I think we'd have
think
time
so,
to do
yeah.
it that way.
Because that closed, you said the first Tuesday in January, which is the 7th.
Right.
And then
So I'm
we,
sorry, I kept saying the 6th,
yeah,
my
that's, no,
apologies.
I knew we were going with that. So that the 8th, so that would close the 7th, and then the 8th and the 15th would be this.
For the new vacant, or for the vacancy.
Can someone,
So if an individual was
Yes.
to go for both
Yep.
Absolutely,
situations,
absolutely.
they could join the board much sooner than having to go through election.
Correct, and then they
And
would
they-
not be, I'm gonna have to,
Well,
Talk to
they'd be
Douglas.
They are on the ballot
they'd
anyway.
be on
Yeah.
the ballot, but they'd be ineligible, right? Because they are already a seated member.
But once they've turned in their papers and they're on the ballot, there's no taking
Right,
their name
right.
off the ballot.
We've had people ask us, I changed my mind, I don't wanna be on from like early February to April, and we can't,
Right.
that's not the way the election laws work.
Okay. So is everyone clear on the dates and at least semi-clear the process. And we'll review the whole process again in the board packet and the evening of
Evening of 27th.
the evening of the 27th at 5.
Yes, I will make my flight accordingly.
Okay.
So, Shirley, how they will apply for any Black Deer's position? It is not the regular board when you are running for election. That is separate.
Right. That's what I'm saying with, so they will submit a letter of interest and a resume, right? And then we will get that as part of the packet. And then that evening, and we'll run through that again that evening, but we'll give them an amount of time to deliver a short introduction,
Yeah.
right?
And you and me have experience about it.
Right. So absolutely same process. So then the board votes on it, and there's a whole process on how
Yeah.
voting works.
That's perfectly fine. So no form, nothing, just write, dear Brett Dobb, I'm applying for position in the
Correct.
place
Yep.
of Amy Black Deer.
Yep.
You have a good day. That's it.
Right. Yep.
And we will vote
Correct.
and then toss.
If it-
Pull
if
from
it-
a hat.
Pull from a
Pull
hat.
from a
yep.
hat.
Hat.
That's
the
the-
last stage is hat.
Correct.
I like the toss. I have a
That's-
coin, it is.
That's a local policy, not state law, just to
Right.
be clear. Some board many years ago had tie after tie after tie, and then in 14, they developed a policy.
And I already wrote myself a note to try to remember to bring a hat because it says hat.
Just in case.
So, any further questions on the board vacancy? We should probably vote on everything we just discussed just to make it clear. So I'll read it back one more time. We're going to post in the papers on the 7th and the 15th. We're going to close the posting on the Wednesday, the 22nd at 4 p.m. We will hold a special board meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, January 27th for the election of the board seat. I'm making that
You said it should be posting on the 8th, not the 7th.
correct. The paper doesn't run on the
You
7th.
accidentally said the 7th when you were reading it back.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just
Yep.
want to make
Yep,
sure
the
that.
8th, yeah, the paper doesn't run on the 7th. So you have the 8th and the 15th, closing on the 22nd, with the board meeting at 5:30 p.m. on the 27th. So I am making that motion. All right, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Don't have a
Alright.
second.
McKill.
We can't.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Employment recommendations. So, in exciting news, we have hired our childcare director. In sad news, we lost a very good activities secretary.
She also had another full-time job that she was a part of. Caitlin Osgard is our Child Care Center director, and she's very excited to get started. So that's great news. And Kim Janes, the former secretary at Forest Street, moved to another job internally in the district. She is a part-time mental health navigator and CHW. So she didn't leave, just moved to a different role. So we welcome Autumn as well.
And is Caitlin considered professional staff, so this does need approval?
Does not.
Okay. All right. We're up to 8.1, student success report. So Dr. Sullivan is up.
Okay, so I get to talk to you about the early literacy remediation plans that are part of Act 20. So this is going to be an incredibly forward-facing topic for our families, and they're going to be getting communication from their teachers about how their students are performing on the early literacy remediation assessment. So this is Act 20. I've talked a little bit about that with you this year. So this, just a little bit of background. On these slides, I'm not going to go through every detail of them. I'm hoping that they can serve as a resource for you if you are getting questions, because families are going to be receiving communication and they may have some questions for you. And so this is something you can come back to. It's just too much information for you to just take in all at once. So this is just kind of a little bit of an overview. And then on the next slide, this is just some language of the actual language of the legislation, and there's more to it, but there's two really big parts. And there's legislation around the screening that means like the assessments that we need to do, like the assessments that everyone gets, and then the diagnostic are the assessments that some students will get. And then the second area is the personal reading plans, and all students below the 25th percentile will be receiving a personal reading plan. So then on the next slide, there's just a timeline, and so there's a link in there, but the big idea in this timeline is that there's 3 major things happening. There's all the assessment that's taking place. There are communications with families that are going to be going out, and then there's professional development and meetings that we're doing with staff so that everyone has the information that they need to do the things that they need to do. And so there's more information there. The big ideas is that for parents, they'll start getting information at the beginning of January, and the results should, if everything goes according to the plan on the timeline, on January 20th on our PD day, we're going to work with teachers to send out the big communication about the results of the screener and the personalized reading plan. So that's where that's at. Then on the next slide, this next piece is around the screening and diagnostic and what we're doing. The assessment platform we're using is Ames Web Plus, and that was a platform that was selected by the state of Wisconsin. So we have been on the science of reading journey in Black River Falls for about 5 years, and we had a different assessment. So part of the process has been changing platforms and learning how that works and ensuring that all of our staff know how to use and discuss this information. So there's a lot going on, and it's a lot to communicate out and ensure that everyone's on the same page. And then the next slide, so this is just like to give you this idea, it's very similar to what we've been doing with the dibbles. There's a fall, a winter, and a spring dig, and then it just for your information, like across the top of the left-hand side, you can see that by grade level, there's different types of assessments that are happening. So depending where you are, like of course what a 4K student is going to do is much different than a student in first grade. So there's different assessments to assess what's happening. And so then what happens with all of this is in reading, we've really like taken it and broken it into different pieces, and there's different assessments for learning about the different parts of reading, whether it be phonemic awareness or phonics or fluency or comprehension. We have a different assessment to help us understand where that child's at and really get down to that root cause of what's happening and why reading isn't occurring. So then on the next slide, this is just, this lists out the name of all the assessments, just more informational based than anything else. Then on the next slide, just that we have just big ideas for you is that we are going to be doing these assessments with an assessment team. These are individualized assessments that are done in a one-on-one setting. So it's a teacher with a child listening to them read in all these different ways. We have some ideas for bringing in all sorts of different staff to make this happen because we have to, assess hundreds of children. And some of that includes, we have some ideas for maybe some subs coming in, some past teachers. So, and that will all start on January 3rd, right? We're gonna give a little break and then start right away when we come back from the break. So then on the next slide, you can see, okay, so then what happens, we do this initial screening, and then after that, any child below 25th percentile will receive additional diagnostic assessment that we can use to build personal reading plans. And then on the next slide, this is just the winter, or the information for winter for Red Creek. There's slight differences. The big idea for just your information in general is that at the littlest levels, the screening is a lot of assessments, and then the diagnostic is less. And as students get older, there's a lot, the screener is pretty short. It's like basically a reading fluency assessment, but then the diagnostics, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And then on the next slide, this is just the names of some of the things.
Yeah, can you unpack that a little bit?
I'm sorry.
Well, can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah.
The diagnostic piece, because you, so say a little person is struggling.
Yep.
What does the diagnostic portion of that yield?
I would describe it as a deeper dive into the different pieces of how reading works. So for example, you have a first grade student and they read a passage to you and you hear all sorts of errors. So you want to figure out why are those errors happening. It could be just they're reading too fast or they're just not attending, but more than likely it's because maybe they're not strong in all the phonics areas or they don't know their vowel sounds. And then sometimes below all of that, there's a phonemic awareness issue where the student doesn't hear the sound.
And so those diagnostic assessments helps you dig in to what the root cause of the reading issue is.
So will this just identify that, so it will dig into the root cause as opposed to just the presence of error?
Yes, that's the idea. And then in our district, because we've been at this for a little bit, we have some other assessments that we use to help us really place students in the places they need to go to get the help that they need.
So Nicole, if a child is not at where they need to be to go to the next grade, what is the plan then? Because I see that if they're not able to comprehend what they're at currently, how can we expect them to comprehend at the next level?
Right. So the planning around that is we have target times in place, we have systems in place, and for some of them it might be specialized instruction if that student has a reading disability or a learning disability of some sort. And we try to personalize that instruction in that way. So for example, at Red Creek, if I misspeak, please let me know. We've set up all of the target times in each grade level according to this type of thinking. So there's a target group that would really focus in on beginning level phonics, a target time that would really focus in on the higher level phonics, all the way up to accelerating students who are ready for those next spaces. And then we have assessments and cutoff scores for how you move throughout that system so that kids aren't just stuck. Like, I read here, but maybe I've learned really quickly. Then that student can progress to that next level according to, because it's all kind of planned out how that learning progresses, and it's all according to the reading research that's really well documented.
So how does the diagnostic interact with like the wider world of education for that kiddo? Like, are we talking about referrals and how we can connect them to resources? I know that's not something that I've looked into as a board member, but as a community member, I find that like there's a deprivation of resources within the wider community to support that. Is that going to attract more support that way as well?
So I always want to ensure that we're not just referring students to special ed unless we suspect there's a disability, and that's a really big deal. There can be a struggle, a learning struggle, or some kids progress at different rates. So that's why it's so important that we have different systems in place to allow for that differentiation in how kids progress through school. But yes, at the same, so that's one part of it, but the other part of that answer is yes. And a part of this is the communication to families about how they can reach out to or who they communicate with if they do suspect there's a disability, and that will be coming out in those letters as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I see it from both sides. Like, it's a big deal, but it's also a big deal if you don't get it and you need it. So I just,
And I also say, like, there's nothing, when it comes to this, kids can get to the good stuff, the really good instruction without that special ed identification at these early levels, because we have it systematized throughout that system. What you're gonna get in special ed is maybe a smaller group or a smaller setting, because we're using all the same strategies and materials and pieces, all the really good pieces for teaching, because teaching reading is good. The good way to teach reading is the same throughout our system, because that's what's the best thing to do. That makes sense. So
Melanie's going to continue to educate us on IEPs later. I mean, our students that are currently IEP students, they're part of this assessment?
yes,
Do they participate differently then once the reading plans are developed? Or?
yes, and it'll be according to, so this will work in tandem with that student's IEP.
Okay.
So what we've found is that student might have an IEP in reading, but this will be a little more detailed than what was happening in that IEP, and it just is going to call it out a little bit differently. And we're working really hard with the special ed team to ensure that it all works in concert and that we're connecting that together.
Okay.
Yes.
Act 20. This is the rule of law
Yes.
of state government that everybody should read.
Yes.
And this law has become law in the year 2021. It says here in your notes. It passed 2021. So they made a law. It means people were not able to read in this country or in the Wisconsin. Therefore, they made a law. That's kind of
Right.
creepy.
And it's also about another part of the law that, like I've talked to at other times, is that it's not just about like learning to read, like the law is about getting kids to read, but how we're teaching kids to read. So like that's a big part of it, is moving away from reading practices that were more based in whole language. There's this big fight in reading about whole language versus the science of reading.
Yep.
And so there's like a debate about that, and there's some pretty good research out there that science of reading practices are.
So as a board members, we have to follow the rule of law,
Yes.
right? And if the result says a student cannot read, so they will come and arrest us. Good luck to us.
I think we're more likely to have to do some, like we would more than likely have to redo our plans.
Okay,
It's
so you will not arrest us, right?
I will be arresting no one, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification.
So Nicole, are we getting more back to the phonics of reading like we did years back?
Yep. And so the big thing about that's different now is like we just can't teach the phonics. We also have to be focused in on what kids can do auditorially. So kids need robust vocabulary, they need robust experiences, they need adults talking to them so that the phonics and reading the words on the page connects to student comprehending what's happening as they read. So I could talk and talk. I'm trying not to take all of your time. This is,
Thank you.
but so I'm on the next piece, which is the personal reading plans. Yes.
I have, so have we ever like looked at using like Lena or something and doing like a dual assessment so that we're getting a feel for the differences in what kids are coming to school with as opposed to just what the school's providing?
A Lena assessment is.
A Lena assessment is a assessment that's done at home that it's like a recorder and it records all the conversations parents have with their kids or whoever, grandparents, whatever, whoever's wearing it really makes you real conscious. But and then it allows them to like learn with their kid how to like work together with the school to create atmospheres in all the spaces where they can all participate as readers and as with the use of words.
That's a lovely idea. So the part of that kind of get to this, like I think what this law is asking us to do is to have more communication with families. And as part of that, like when we get into the personal reading plans, like we're kind of in those infancy stages, but we'll be sending out surveys to try to get at some information like self-report versus a recording, like that type of thing. So there is going to be like opportunities and to try to get those connections with families so that we can, build those partnerships and work together, because that's what it takes for a child to learn. The more that we can work together, the better off students are.
And just to be clear, I've never in an educational setting heard a Lena assessment. We don't get to evaluate families, right? So that is not something, it's just never been discussed in any.
Families usually it's kind of fun. It's like
I'm just saying that's
but-
never been introduced in an educational setting before, so I'd be very interested in learning more about it.
Yeah.
Right, you've never heard that term before, that's why you asked?
It's not, it's very new. It's something that's just kind of taken root recently, right?
I feel like technology is growing so rapidly right now. I look forward to talking to you more about technology and all the different tech things happening at another date. So this area is like basically it's just like the data or like little bullets of everything that needs to happen in those personal reading plans. Just a reference for you. And then on the next slide, this is an example of what it's going to look like. So this is something that I'm really excited about. EduClimber, which is something that we have used for data for a long time, has really worked hard to work with the state of Wisconsin to ensure that we can support all of this communication that needs to happen. So this is kind of what it's going to look like on the parent end. This is in a PDF form. And what this will do, EduClimber allows us to pull all of this data, like all this assessment data, screener data, diagnostic data directly into that form for communicating out The other piece to this is that it can help us, there's a progress monitoring piece that goes along with this for each week, and then it will automatically pull the data into these forms as well for communicating that information home to families.
If I could just summarize for a second, one of our strategic objectives in our strategic plan was that families are engaged in their child's learning. And so we asked the question on our family survey, my child is at or above grade level, and the percentage of parents who respond, so not everybody responds, but we always get a much higher percentage of families who believe their child is at grade level than reality would tell us when we do our assessments. And so we've talked about how we can help our teachers talk about their child's achievement in a way that is respectful, but also honest, that if your child is underperforming, that it's appropriate to say that and to give the family some things that they could do to help that progress. And we're hopeful that these reading plans will, at the very least, raise that awareness with families, because we try to invite kids who are behind to specific summer school sessions, and families don't send they choose not to, and some for very, very, very good reasons, some because the kid says I don't want to and they don't. But we're just hoping that if we can all talk about where the kids are at and the families feel empowered to be able to do something to influence that, that perhaps we can help to move them forward as well. That partnership, there will hopefully be more of a feeling of partnership as opposed to anything less than, I guess.
So one of the things that is exciting, I was talking a little bit about that progress monitoring before. In our district, you were in that category where you were seeing an interventionist, where your data like put you with that interventionist, and you would receive that weekly progress monitoring, and now anyone below the 25th percentile will, including all of our vet students. So I really think that might be that next step that we were really looking for and getting at. Our goal is like all kids should read, like that's my mission. So next slide. And then this is just some more stuff from EduClimber, just to give you a visual. These are generic slides. So this is, when we pull up EduClimber, this is what it looks like for all of our staff. And I think at the top where it's like that purpley color, that's where the forms will live. And then on the next slide, and then this is just what parents will see. So right now, unfortunately, from EduClimber, when the parent receives the email out, it's going to say no reply. So that's something that they're working on. That would be preferable to have that teacher's name right there in that, in that author area or the from area. But for now, that's what's there. So we're planning on a series of communications throughout January, so teachers or parents and families know to be looking for this no reply email that says students' documents available for your review. And so then on the next slide,
Is that where they would find the surveys?
the survey is, we're going to send the survey out through ThrillShare. We just decided today,
Through what?
through our
It's our notification system.
notification
Oh,
system.
okay. I'm like,
Is it
shouldn't-
thrilling? I don't think so.
No.
It's how you get notifications.
ThrillShare,
Thrill.
but that keeps shifting. Like the best way to get, we want to make sure that the link works. So we're not positive the link will work through this communication. So for this first one, we're going to send that out separately.
and the reason I ask is because surveys, a lot of parents don't do them. But I know kids get sent home folders and a lot gets put in there. So if the paper went in the folder and the parents reviewed it, they could do it and send it back.
You and Melanie are on the same page. That's her suggestion. Today.
Up to a certain age, those are key, getting it in the folder, and then it no longer works.
So
Yeah.
with this, can we track on the backside, if they click on the view documents, you can send follow-ups to those that haven't opened it yet?
Yes, great question. So after the parent clicks on the no reply, that's what they see is that last slide. And then they get where they have to answer security questions. So we're going to be putting out social media information about this happening, so information from principals and teachers so that they know that this is all safe to do. So then, I don't know what else we got. All right, so then, so this is what's really cool. I'm excited. As part of the law, the parent needs to sign, and EduClimber has worked with the state of Wisconsin, and see where it's yellow, like you have to show that you acknowledge that you have received the documents. That that acknowledgement is all that we need for fulfilling our obligations under the state for accepting that they saw it, acknowledging that they have received the documents. And then the toolbar tour. And just this next section, I don't know that I needed to share all this, but I did. Next in January, so that our teachers, all of this just rolled out like 2 weeks ago. So we have to train all of our staff on how to do all of this, including how to push these out, how to fill out the forms. That's happening. We're starting that work on January 8th. The next slide is like going back in time to December. We did some initial sharing out with teachers in December with all that information.
What happens if they don't click the button?
Then we can see that track will follow up. As we don't have all the plans of how that is all going to work, but right now the plan is a follow up to discuss. But it's an acknowledgement. We still need to continue with the.
So as Karen mentioned, the law, Act 20, was passed in 2021, and DPI keeps pushing back the full implementation date because there are so many things to organize. At first, it was supposed to be funded for districts, and then just kidding, figure it out yourselves. And so all of those notifications, all of those plans, all the professional development time to teach the teachers how to do all of that is all stuff that we've been scrambling to try to figure out, as is the rest of the state. So at first, it was supposed to be by this fall, all schools in the state of Wisconsin were supposed to be ready to give that first assessment and do the whole notification, and then they pushed it back to January 1st was when we had to start for middle of the year. And so every school district in the state is trying to figure this out at the same time. And so I think it will be very important and helpful for us to hear from parents who get those notifications the first time around, like, that felt terrible, I would really have appreciated X, Y, or Z, right? Or I didn't understand this when I got it, all of those different pieces. And so when Nicole goes to her regional meetings, when I go to my regional meetings, Vicki Kramer, our district reading specialist, Melanie, everyone is just trying to figure out what it looks like, because it would be nice if there was a sweeping requirement, if there were templates and all of the guidelines, but that's not the way we roll. And so I appreciate the questions, and it is very appropriate for you to say, we don't have that figured out yet, because we are still working with all the staff to figure out what that's going to look like, because bottom 25th percentile, there's going to be some parents who are very aware that their child is multiple grade levels behind, and they're going to say, why did you send me this? We just had an IEP meeting last week and you told me where they are. Why did I get this? Because we have to, right? So how can we make it feel respectful for everybody who receives it? So it's definitely an ongoing process, and we are wide open for feedback as we work through it.
Yes. So then on January 20th, we're going to be doing our plan is to put all our K-3 teachers together in a space and have lots of people helping, and work as teams to push out all this information. And then the next slide. The whole point of all this is to teach children so that they learn to read. And so I just listed some of the strategies, the interventions, how is progress monitored here. You can't see all of it, but I wanted to assure that there's just a lot of work that's being put into ensuring that all the kids in our district have what they need. Is there another slide? So I also included the information from DPI, and it's called, on Act 20, called Wisconsin Reads. And some of the really fun reading in that is, as you read through, the guidance on this coming soon. So some of the things that I told you tonight might shift. So an example of that is they told us we needed to do one set of diagnostics, and then 2 months later it's a different set. So we're just moving with it and doing our best to comply, and with the goal of really creating a great program for kids and our families.
Nicole, can I ask a question? I guess, yes, can I? So we're gonna start with this program at the lower level. What about these kids who are already behind in reading by 1, 2, 3 grades? I think it's great we're getting all of this and helping all these younger kids, but we have a pile of kids who are behind. And what are we gonna do with them to make them and to help them be successful by the time they graduate? I mean, that's a concern for me. What are we gonna do? What is the plan?
So one of the things we could do at a future board meeting is we could talk more about our tier 1 instruction and the ways that we've shifted, we've been making shifts. And some of the shifts that have happened in our reading and math programming in the upper elementary, middle school, that would be a great board meeting topic. And then for kids, like it's really hard when you have a student like that's a middle schooler, right? And they don't know their vowel sounds. And so then we have other systems in place. How do we help those students, especially those students that they don't have a disability, but they don't have the skills? How are we helping those students? We have things in place, and that doesn't mean that we have all the answers or that we're there 100%, but we're continuing to tweak and dig and find out what are better and better ways of doing it that are more efficient, more effective.
Nicole, could I just offer, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you are definitely the expert in the science of reading. All that you just described, Act 20, my perception is that that is about the requirements of intervention and parent communication, or the parent communication piece is the most significant change for our system. We have been teaching in the science of reading for years. So our instruction at the younger levels is not changing. So when we call it a program, I just want to be clear, that's not a program. We're not switching. We switched to the science of reading first, and now they're saying to the rest of the state, you must follow. And so when we switched to the science of reading, we had 6th graders in a phonemic awareness class, and they were salty about it because it's tough to make learning phonics not feel juvenile, but we filled some holes. We filled some holes for some of those kids.
And for those kids, they should never have been put and continue to be passed when they are failing.
Well, we have policy on grade advancement, and if you'd like to analyze that, we certainly can.
But that is the problem. We have this policy that said we just keep moving them up, but they're never gonna gain because they're always behind. So when we keep passing from the kids who are not at where they should be currently, and we move them up, now they're already delayed, and we're moving them a grade up, they're already going to have problems learning because they haven't learned it here. So this is where I struggle.
So I truly mean it. What would you like to do? Would you like to talk about a grade retention policy? Because that's what we're looking at, right?
Can I jump on board just real quick? So I'm intimately familiar with dyslexia and reading, and as probably the reason I have a master's in ed, because I didn't want kids to experience their educational experience like I did. And it took me a really long time to figure out how to manage that situation in my own personal life. And what the other piece to what you're saying, I think, is what I'm hearing, is that writing is a form of communication, but communication is, communication. And as somebody who experiences it, I think in ways other people can't, because my brain works differently. And so I'd also like to look at some point if we can implement policy that allows kids to utilize that strength as well, because it lessens the blow of them not being very good at reading. And it sends them the message that they're still smart, but I'll never read like you read. But that's okay. I've learned to work around it.
Right.
And I've learned that actually comes with a huge superpower, that I can do things other people can't. And so I'm wondering if there's a space where we can supplement this with another kind of assessment that allows us to figure out what other ways we can support them in communication and how to work around the fact that they may never be as good as everyone else.
As a supplement to this, for sure we can talk about that. This is what the law is telling us we must do, and so anything that we choose to do on top of that, 100%. And unfortunately, somebody like that is always going to get that letter that they're below the 25th. That person is always going to not help our scores on the, all of those things. And they have other things that we can celebrate, for sure.
And I think that's great, because I had speech issues growing up where I had classes. I had a son who went through the same thing. And I have a granddaughter who has the same issue and a grandson, and they had a lot of hearing issues. I feel like we don't realize how much this has impacted them from little to now. We keep saying, oh, you're doing great. And we want to encourage the parents. We want them to think everything is going great. I had a kid or a teacher who told me I had a kid who was a whiny kid, but he never said a word. And it was very frustrating because my son never talked, to be told he's a whiny kid. And today we have kids who are below, and it frustrates me because I experienced it, he experienced it, grandkids are experiencing it, and I don't want to see us just, there's more to what we can do, because reading is a huge, huge part of their life. And we want them to be successful when they leave. But it also comes down to the speech classes that they use. I don't know if they still are doing them. I know my youngest would go to a speech class to help with that.
We have speech and language pathologists who work either individually or in small groups.
So I know that helped him, but I can still hear it, and I still know I have an issue with it. But I look at our kids today, is this what we're seeing in a lot of kids and parents where life is just way too busy? Life is busy. And if we can distract more from giving to our kids that time. Sometimes parents put the sports before the education because the kid is great in sports but stinks in academics. It's wrong. I don't want to see parents think that way. I don't want kids, because eventually they're not going to be able to play those academics because they're not doing well, and we are forgetting about that. And I'm not trying to say we are forgetting it, but there's something in that whole group of kids in the last, if you take from 5th grade, maybe even 4th grade, up to 8th grade, those kids are so behind. And there is something that we can't keep lowering the standards. We can't keep saying at the state lowers, that makes our kids look better. No, it just makes them look stupid. We're not helping them to increase the scores. We are helping them by lowering it, and the standards, we don't have a bar for it anymore because, I want to see something different here. Whether we stop lowering standards for our district and say, this is what the expectations are. We're not gonna lower the grading ranges so that the kid passes. We're not gonna sit back and, I'm gonna get emotional because it really bugs me that we are doing poor. And we have to do something different. There's got to be something different that we can do for our kids in this community. And it's not just the parents, it's not just the teachers, it's all of us. And somehow we have to get on that page to increase and to improve the way Jackson County School District of Black River Falls, state of Wisconsin, where one day we will be at the top. But we're at the bottom right now, and I'm not proud of it. I'm not.
Well, and I think you're right. It's not just the teachers. It's not just the district. It's everything, right? And if you look at our test scores, I forget what the current ones are, but it's in the neighborhood of 93% of our kindergartners are coming in reading below grade level, right? And that's, we didn't have all those students in 4K, right? That's, these kids are not getting enough books read to them at home, right? This kid's not getting books read to them over the summer,
But
right?
that doesn't, but Brad, even though we're still not reading, parents are not reading, I'm not gonna say I sat and read to my kids every day.
I'm willing to say that.
As a parent, I'm not perfect. But I will say my kids, other than my youngest one, my two older ones did not have a problem with reading. But I'm saying right now, we have changed our standards and expectation. Years ago, you wouldn't pass a kid. If they didn't have a passing grade, you wouldn't pass them.
So
I can't speak to that.
if you plant an oak tree, you can't expect a maple to grow. Like, that's just
Right.
not how it works. But I mean, we're experiencing absenteeism and as they go on. If you're told over and 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 over again you're not successful, eventually you just quit trying. And you quit showing up for yourself. And like, I feel like we need to figure out how to celebrate that they might not do that real well, but also incorporate, but you do this like a rock star. So let's see what we can do there and value that as much.
So from the X20 perspective, some of the things that I think are hopeful or helpful is that the expectations are high. Like, I feel like with my professional judgment, what they're asking kids to do is appropriate age grade level for what a child would need to do to be successful later in their life. So that's good news. It's good news that there's assessment capability on 4K. So we're going to be able to really see what those 4-year-olds can do, and that's hopeful to your point, Brad, like where students are coming in at. I think when I look at the data, we're in a tough spot, right? Where our report card lies and the work that's ahead of us. But I think there's a lot of hope in it too. You can see movement in places, and you can see where some of the work is coming to fruition. And I believe that we're on the right path, and as far as like what other districts who have had those turnaround districts are doing. So, and I think that change comes from a hopeful place. Rarely comes from a place of just believing we can't do it and we're all failing. So that's kind of some of the things that I think about. I think we have amazing staff. I think we have a really strong community. I'm really proud of being from this community. And I think that it takes, like you said, it takes all these people working together. And I think this is also hopeful in that we're going to be strengthening communication and figuring out more ways of bringing people together. So it's hard. It's hard to talk about the data. It makes me feel sick. But at the same time, I do think that there's some silver linings, some things to point to what our next steps are.
And as we look at the data, we're going to talk about in a minute, and this is not sunshine and rainbows. We are not at the bottom, folks. People like to talk as if we are, but we're going to talk about it and show you. If you hear the same message over and over and over, you start to believe it. And sometimes it's just not true. It's just not true. So we're gonna take a look at it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then take a deeper dive at our special meeting where we get more of a chance to ask all of those questions. I agree with you 100%. There's not one simple answer. There's no way there's a magic bullet or every single person would spend as much as they possibly could to get that magic bullet. It is going to be a series of things that adjust to make the difference. And I know that this is a very unpopular opinion, but there is so much educational research that talks about how much is invested in education and the outcomes that are achieved. We have worn this as this badge of honor that we're a low spending district for how long? And you look at our neighbors, we spend significantly less per student. And I'm not saying that money is the answer to everything, but I'm simply saying the state of Wisconsin used to be one of the top investors in education, and we are one of the top achievers in education. I want to remind everyone when we talk about us lowering the standards, the ACT test used to be just given to college-bound students. Every single high school kid, even those that have zero interest in going to college, have to take that ACT, and that is the score that our high school receives. This college-bound test that a lot of kids don't care about, that is what is determining our high school score. I don't think that's a lowering of expectations at all. When you look at our data over time, as was shared with you earlier, you can see the year that the ACT started being required. It was after 16, 17, suddenly all students had to take the ACT. That has been a major blow to our high school data that we have not recovered from yet. And so what we're going to talk about in a little bit is when you disaggregate and pull apart our buildings, and hear me loud and clear when I say this, our high school is doing amazing work. They have made so many changes this year. Their staff believes so strongly in the work. The leadership of Kim and Nate and their guiding coalition, they are changing things that is impacting the number of student failures, in the kids' interest in accomplishing and learning new things. Kids are practicing ACT skills in the morning during advising to maybe win a donut on the next Monday. Like, they are doing hard things. And that report card score is a 3-year average, so it's going to be a long road for that high school staff before they get to reap some of those rewards. And so if you look at our middle school and Red Creek, we rank middle to slight bottom. When you add our high school in, we're down at the bottom because the high school right now is well below. And they know that, and I don't say that to judge or any of those things, but we have things that are working at the elementary and middle school, and when we keep talking about how bad our district is and failing, we are crushing souls of people who have put so much time in. Our staff, they just look at it and they can celebrate their class's growth, and then they listen to a board meeting and hear that we're at the bottom. But they're not. If we can just be specific about the things that aren't working, it would just feel so much better to everyone doing the work. Are we proud? Those report cards came out, and Nicole and I were sick to our stomachs because we want them to be reflective of the hard work that people are doing. And when you walk the schools and listen to the staff, they are making changes. Those scores just change so painfully slow, a 3-year average. So I just want to throw that out there. We are not at the bottom. We are doing things that are working. Do we have it all figured out? No, but I don't know anybody who's got it all figured out. So if we could just try to focus real hard on the things that are really broken instead of everything. And I mean this with complete sincerity. The whole admin team is looking for how can the board, because you lead through policy, what policies can we establish to help families understand their role in their child's education, not as a blame, but as a partnership, like you said. We can't do it alone. We certainly don't expect families to do it alone, but what would a policy look like that talked about if you're this far behind, you have to come to summer school because 2.5 months off is just too much. We've recommended, we've requested, we've asked nicely, and they've said no. So is that something the board wants to take action on? I don't know, right? So nothing is easy and not one thing is going to fix it, but how can this group, use your collective power to partner with some of that work? I would love to have a discussion on that as well.
Just an idea. Expectations and consequences, obviously if your kid has all Fs and they still move to the next grade, there's no consequences or expectations there. So if you're at parent-teacher conferences and little Johnny has all Fs, and little Johnny, if you don't get to it, you're going to be doing 3rd grade again next year. That's kind of a big consequence. So, to think about that, I would really encourage them to at least get Ds.
Yeah.
But this is Midwest. They do it in down south, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Florida. They held back. We not Florida.
We retained some, I'm thinking of a middle school kid that we did retain because they just did not engage, and then they came back the second year and did not engage in anything. And now what? They've called our bluff, right? So they're going to be 16 years old, sitting in 7th grade. And so that is one example, and of course there might be examples where it works for. I just think that we need more tools in our toolbox to talk about the importance, because I think frequently it's not, we set kids up for failure when the Fs, they don't need the credits until they get to high school. So a kid that has not passed classes moves forward until high school, and suddenly I need credits, and then I'm credit deficient very quickly. But we've not found a model of another system that's figured out what that accountability looks like at the middle school. We think that the Tiger Pass system is extrinsically motivating a lot of our high school kids. So Dan and Chris and I have talked a lot about what could be built into the middle school so that the kids cared about it, so that the kids were extrinsically motivated. But so at the high school when they're on Tiger Pass, they get to leave at the end of the day. That's a huge motivator. When you looked at the F list, that F list at the high school, they had some serious celebrations because the kids are working and passing their classes. That has to feel good. And so to your point, I pass a few classes, suddenly I'm not a failure. Right. I mean, so success builds success just like failure builds failure. So we've been trying to think, what could middle school be so that, because at some point we have to separate the kids who can't do from the kids who won't do because they don't care. And so that is an absolute true problem that we are talking about right now. And so if you have ideas, what could that motivation look like at the middle school level? We can't let them leave early because they're too young and their parents were still responsible for them, but what does that look like? And so that,
years back, did we not require kids, if they weren't doing well or if they failed, to take summer school, that it was not an option?
So we said that, well, I'm not going to say that, I don't know for sure. I know for a while when I was an elementary principal, Mr. Rude did like a star night so that if you were failing in class, you had to come an evening to make up the work from that class, or you weren't going to pass and then you couldn't move forward. And then staff got really frustrated because the kid would sit and do absolutely nothing all day, would come for those 2 star nights, do all the work, and then would move forward. So the teachers were like, this isn't effective. So,
Right.
this
would be different if we're saying that parents don't send their kids to summer school. Well, I want to say when I was in school, goes way back, they did have it where it was required, especially at the high school level, because they were failing classes, they had to go to summer school to get caught up. And then again, parents will send their kids to a hockey camp, football camp, baseball camp, because their kid is great at it, but they stink in school.
Because their kid likes that, right? What parent doesn't want to foster their kid's
Right,
interest,
and that's
right?
what I'm saying. The difference is, you know, parents don't want to hear that my kid isn't doing well, but in what's reality? What do you want for your kid?
I think they know it. They don't need to be told over and 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 over again. I think they know that. It's hard for them
not
to hear.
telling them over and over. I'm not saying that. But what it is when we can say, yep, you're great, but when they hit high school, and if they're failing academically, what are those sports going to do for them? Nothing.
Because they don't get to play.
Because they won't get to play.
And so my opinion is, tonight was supposed to be looking at the data. I'm wondering after this conversation if this will spark some thoughts in all of you, and perhaps when we schedule that special meeting, we could throw some ideas around what does board policy to increase accountability look like.
Yes.
Making it kind of inconvenient to fail classes.
That's
Like, I don't get lunch. I don't get to go out to recess because I had a study or something. I don't know.
And so that is another way that we've increased accountability, that if a student athlete is failing, they have to go to tutoring for the first hour of practice until their grade is back up, and then they get to go watch the rest of practice. So that's a reinforcement that your grades matter first. And so a lot of these pieces are slowly moving, but it's a slow turning ship is what it boils down to. And again, that ACT test, the college entrance exam, is how that high school score is determined, and now every single kid has to take it, and that is new in recent years, since our high school scores have been so low. So, is that fair enough that we go through the data that we were planned tonight, and you guys ponder this topic and talk about what some possible, whether it's board policy or ideas or thoughts for admin look like? Because to be honest, I feel like this is the work, because if a parent doesn't like what we land on, you're going to be the ones that are going to hear about it, and so it has to be something that you can stand behind, but it also has to be something that we educationally can stand behind. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Dr. Sullivan, were you done, or did I hijack
I just kind of
that?
walked away. I apologize.
That's-
Thanks, Nicole.
I think you are done. It's okay. I think you're good.
Thank you.
I think so. You done the good job.
Oh,
thank you.
we finally got it.
Oh, perfect.
So you're coming back in
Give it to
just a
Gar.
little bit.
We have,
Yeah,
Got
student success.
Jill, if I could have you do the data stuff, and then I'm gonna grab the screen when we do the report card stuff, if that's right. Okay. So as per the board data analysis calendar, these are the pieces that are up for you this end of trimester. And so if you recall, you guys had put a whole bucket load of data that you were interested in seeing on some relative basis. Our Title VI agreement and our policy 81111, that is communication with Native American families, comes with the impact aid application, and it tells us that we also have to disaggregate our data by Native versus non-Native. And so we do that because we have to report it out to the education department and to the families of the tribe. But we still have to protect student confidentiality. Any cell size that's lower than 20, we can't disaggregate because it would be too easy to identify who that person is. So that's why the OSS data is not pulled apart by ethnicity, because the numbers are so small of the students impacted. So the principals reported it, the admin reported it in a way that you can see the number of students that have received an out-of-school suspension, and then the total number of days that have been missed due to suspension. And for the students that are up for expulsion, that gets to be like 15 days. They agreed that they were going to count 5 days of OSS for each student who came to an expulsion hearing, just so that we had some frame of reference. So there's that piece. Questions, or we're gonna?
I'm just curious, Christina, our youngest learners, what is landing them in OSS?
I would say having trouble regulating their emotions, getting to the point where they are very escalated with their behavior and becoming aggressive with staff or other students.
Kind of what I guessed.
Would you think it's fair that typically, if a student can, with intervention, if a student can fix it and turn it around, good. When it leads to OSS, it's multiple blow-ups during the day that haven't been able to be turned around. Is that fair?
Yeah, our first option is always to get them to calm themselves down and go back to the classroom so that they can be a learner that day. Unfortunately, if that happens repeatedly over the same day, then we have to assess whether that's proper placement for that day.
So this is the chronic absenteeism. So last year we had some trouble pulling this data. Nicole took it right off of WiseDash, so we are sure that this is accurate. If you recall, any student who misses more than 10% of the instruction offered, and so this is not habitual truancy. This is, if we've had 10 days of school and you miss one, you're already considered chronically absent because you've missed more than 10% of the instruction offered. So as you can see, we've got a significant problem here. As of December 9th, we have an alarming number of students who've already missed 10% of instruction. And so I have, during an intergovernmental collaboration at the City Hall, I talked to the city police, and they're gonna put our heads together and see if we can come up with any additional help for truancy. The simple truancy is still happening through the county, and the Saturday school is alive and well for those kids that are getting those simple truancy tickets. But as you can see, it's certainly not a deterrent to get kids to school on the average day.
So what are we at, about midway right now?
Not quite. We're about, principals, anyone know the day count? I think end of January is usually the semester, so I bet we're about 20 days away from mid-year. So I'm gonna say we have about 60, maybe 55 days in. So if a kid has missed 6 days already, they'd be on this list. And remember, so when the state counts chronic absenteeism, it is any time you're not in school. They don't care if you were excused for a doctor's appointment. They don't care any of those things. If you were not in school during instruction, you were chronically absent, just so we are all there.
Is lunch considered instruction?
The kids who leave during that time are not on this list. All right. Okay, then the grade point averages. We have first trimester up there, so remember that we're using the standards-based grading, and yet they can still turn that into a grade point average. You see it starts at 6th grade through 12th grade, and it is very, very typical that freshman year is the lowest grade point average of the high school, just like your freshman year of college is usually your lowest year, and then you figure stuff out, right? That holds true here. Questions? Okay. The next one is the chart that has been highly requested. It took some pretty serious tallying on Dr. Sullivan's part, but this is the grade disbursement that people were asking for. And so I hope this is what you meant. We took all of the kids in ELA, all the kids in math from each of the schools. The reason that the numbers are different at the high school for English and math, because we're on the trimester system. So there's a student who is taking math and it's 2 sections, but it might be trimester 2 and trimester 3, not trimester 1. So they would not all be in a math class at any given time. There's about 500 students at the high school, and so they're not all in an ELA or math class at any given time. So that's why those numbers are lower. Question?
This is the data I have been asking for a long time.
Are you excited?
Yes. From
I'm not feeling it. No, I'm just kidding.
May 6, 2023. This data I have been asking, not exactly the way I wanted, but this is very close to it. I have generated all these percentages into number. Middle school, 328 students in ELA, 111 students got A, and 104 students in ELA got B grade. 75 students got C grade in ELA. 13 students got D. Just 16 are F. Just 16. This is the beautiful job Blackbird Fall Middle School Mr. Notman is doing. Number 1. Number 2, mathematics in middle school, 328 students. 124 got A.
So
Let me complete the numbers.
we can all multiply.
But I would
percentages.
like to emphasize a few other things. And in the mathematics, 118 got B grade. 59 students out of 328 C. C is not mid grade. C is like maybe 75%. 60 is a D percent. Is a D. Only 13 students out of 328 in the mathematics, just 13, 1-3, got a D grade, and 13 also failed. We can work with the 13, 14, 15, 20, 30, 40 students who got F. We can work with them. This is a magnificent achievement of middle school. I really love it. I spent so many hours comprehending all these things. Now we go to the high school. 331 students in English or ELA, 105 got A grade. 105 got A grade. This is beyond clipping. 79 got B grade out of 331. 92 students got C grade. 26 got D. Only 23 fell. Just 23. That 7% you see, that is out of 331, which is 23 students. We can work with them. That's not a big deal. And then in the mathematics, they rock the world. They supersede the English. Then they have 87 students got A in mathematics in high school. 90 students got B grade in mathematics. 87 students got C grade in mathematics. 18 students got D. And 5%, just 15 students out of 300 got F grade, which is not a big deal. We can always work with them. Easy. This is exceptional result. I file a motion, each principal should get $10,000 award. Anybody second? I'm serious. Come on, guys.
Maybe Erickson wants clarification.
this level, I file a motion that each principal of middle school and high school should get award of achieving this level. This is not a lie. They not manufactured it. This is a true result.
I feel like if I could award them all 10,000, I'm glad.
You second it or not, so we can
Well, I'm
discuss.
glad it's been approved already, so I don't think we have that leniency, but I would totally back it if we did.
Anybody second? You don't want to award our great leaders. Look at the result. They rock their school both, middle and high school. And I am not a kind of guy will just speak good about anyone.
No, you are not. That is right.
Look at that. 5% got an F grade. It means 15 students. That's it. I can work with him personally.
I can do that math in my head.
Yeah, we can do it in a head. 5%
You
of
would not be
300.
in that percentage.
So I file a motion, each principal, not elementary, absolutely not, there is no elementary.
Okay, so
Middle
that
school or
is not,
high
that is
school,
not an
each
item on the
principal
agenda.
get $10,000 award for achieving this.
So that's not an item on the agenda, so
Your
we
blood
cannot
pressure is
discuss
getting
it
up.
tonight.
This will rise my good blood pressure upward,
Yep.
not the bad blood pressure.
So low,
Alright.
low.
I have questions on that report
Right.
data.
I like your strength base, I appreciate that.
You didn't second my motion. You were against the principles.
I love the principles, but no, we can't do that, it's against policy.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to 8.3, the DPI report cards, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit some of the highlights tonight, and and we're gonna talk about scheduling a special meeting in January, which may be the existing special meeting, but we tried to get together last Thursday, could not get enough board members together, so we'd like to come back and, at least I would like to, it's up to the board, spend some more time with this possibly in January, so.
I'd say maybe the night of the
That's,
27th.
that would be my vote, but we'll talk about that, we've got that coming up on the agenda, so.
Kind of depends how many candidates too, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're interviewing
if
all
there's
night.
one, probably won't be very long.
Right,
If there's 40, might take a bit.
right,
So.
so,
So state
Well,
report
it's
cards,
not-
I'm gonna start with this point, and I did talk about it at the annual meeting, but I just wanna build off of something that Jeanette, made a comment about because it is 100% factual. The state of Wisconsin did change the cut scores this year, and I just wanna clarify what that means. That means that if you are a fifth grader and on the Wisconsin Forward, you got I'm gonna make up a number, like a 432, last year, that 432 might have put you at the very top of the proficient, and because they redrew the lines this year, that might be the bottom of the advanced, right? So what they did is they changed where the cut scores were to put people into categories of advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. So the state did that. I have lots of charts and stuff if you're interested in seeing them. They look at the NAEP scores across every single one of the states in the United States. Wisconsin used to, our previous cut scores were number 3 in the nation, and as Wisconsin has slid in the rankings, they have changed those cut scores to be more in alignment. We're still in the top half of the states, so we got no vote in this, and in fact, it messes with any comparative data. So we can't compare our proficient and advanced this year to proficient and advanced last year because it wouldn't be comparative because they changed the test, right? So you can't do that. So what can we do? Measure our gap with the state, because that has been persistent, and they didn't just change the scores for Black River Falls, they changed the scores for the entire state, and so everybody was recalibrated. Interestingly, we had a meeting at CISA with the state superintendent, Dr. Jill Underly, and Dr. McCarthy, her first lieutenant state superintendent, I'm not sure his title, I apologize, and we asked them, so if everyone's proficiency went up, why did so many scores go down? And he said, because we would get chewed up and spit out by the legislature if we didn't keep you on a bell curve. And if you want to see a group of professionals kind of lose their mind, they said, you've set up a system where there will always be districts failing. Like even if their score keeps going up, you're going to keep them down here on the bell score, so they will always, bell curves, they'll always be failing. And they said, well, we can't have everybody doing great. And of course, superintendents from across the region, they said, But we can. We have great public schools everywhere. Would it be that hard to say that everyone is doing better? And so it wasn't a great meeting, but the points were made and the points were heard. So what I want to share with you is our gap between where Black River Falls was and the state, because again, cut scores change for everybody. If we're closing that gap, we know that we are making progress faster than the rest of the state. Can we all agree on that concept? So what I had the principals do is we looked at last year. So this is this is Red Creek, this top corner. So I'm going to explain it to you one time around, and then you'll be able to just look at it and apply the logic to all of them. So this is Red Creek. In 22-23, the gap between Black River Falls, Red Creek Elementary, and the state of Wisconsin was 11.7%. In 23-24, that gap was 10%. So we made that gap smaller by 1.7%. Does that make sense to you? So if you look through Red Creek on the top, they reduced the gap all the way across ELA and math. And chronic absenteeism, our gap actually grew. So the attendance data is a year lagging. So if you look at this, this is 21-22 data for the first point, and then 22-23 for attendance. So for some reason, the state always has the attendance data lagging an additional year. So our gap got larger that year. So then you can look at the middle school, the gap was reduced by 2 points. You can, in ELA and then math, almost a 4-point reduction, and then the chronic absenteeism gap increase. You can look at the high school. The gap for ELA is the only one that did not decrease in all of the academic areas. And then for math, the gap did decrease, and then the chronic absenteeism increased. And then this is the whole district. There was a decrease in the gap in ELA, a larger reduction in the gap in math, and then a significant increase in the gap for chronic absenteeism. If you read much on how to improve student achievement, it is how much you spend on education and how much kids attend. It is tough to teach kids who aren't here. And that's not an excuse, that is data driven. It's hard for us to teach kids who aren't here. So, does everyone understand that chart?
Looks to me like the red column is the number one issue.
And tough, right? Yes. And tough. So I just want to share that. And then I also shared with you, so you can see our report card. You can, of course, go to the DPI website and see anybody's report card that you want to. They are all public. You can do that. But what I wanted to share with you, and this is a little bit to talk about that point of we are not at the bottom as every single school. So what you have right here is this is all of our CISA 4 schools. So not school districts, this is every school in CISA 4. These ones on top that are not applicable, these are all private schools that receive state funding, but they do not have to participate in the state assessment system. So they do not get a scorecard, they do not participate in testing, but they are in our CISA, so I included them for your review. All of these that are AR, there's an alternate accountability. There's a lot of different reasons. You can see that some of them are charter schools like the Sparta Alternative Independent, the School of Technology, but also forestry is an alternate assessment because we don't have any tested grades that go to forestry. So I just wanted you to understand that AR means alternate testing. So they are also not ranked. So then we start with all of our CISA 4 schools, and these are sorted in order of the highest scores down to the lowest scores. So what you're looking at, the highest performing individual school in our CISA 4 was Ettrick Elementary. Their total student enrollment, I'm just gonna, because there's all these ways to sort on top, which I think is interesting. The total enrollment is 115 kids. So with 115 kids, you can imagine how 1 or 2 kids would make a dramatic difference in their score. A few years ago, they were not doing very great. They were identified for improvement, and here they are, the highest school. I'm saying that these scores can move based off of your enrollment as well. So when we just quickly scroll, you will see these are all in CISA 4. Here's our middle school, and then a few more schools. Here's Red Creek Elementary, and we keep scrolling, and there's our high school, and that's the bottom of the list. So when people say we are at the bottom, I'm asking for specificity because we have 2 of our 3 schools who are right smack in the middle of this list. So I'm saying this not because I'm trying to blow smoke or trying to make lemonade. I'm just asking for factual information when we're talking about our schools. The next spreadsheet that I included, and so if you're interested, you can sort, because I have already talked about how what you spend on achievement is one of your highest indicators of success. Also, your demographics in your community. The higher percent free and reduced typically is tied to more achievement challenges. If you are interested in sorting this, that's why I included it, so that you can sort in any way you want. You can change the demographics over here, but you also can get to, there's percent of students.
Column V, I think it is.
B? Yep, economically disadvantaged. So this column, you could sort it from, use your filter. Oh, Google Sheets, I hate it, not, Bill, can you, oh no. Back to it. Is lowest to highest, yep. It's the lowest to highest, free and reduced, and ours are still the orange ones. So there's the bottom, the highest school is at 86% free and reduced, and then Red Creek is at 57, middle school's at 53, high school's at 48. So you can see all of the schools there. So again, I shared it with you just that you can play around with it a little bit if you're interested in any of those different demographics. Something that we have monitored our progress on for a while is the percentage of schools that have 10% Native American population or higher. It is a really small number of school districts. So there's 421 school districts in the state, and I think there are these individual schools, yeah. So this is individual schools, but I think there's only like 16 school districts that have higher than 10% Native American population. I again sorted this by individual schools as opposed to by district. So you can see Seymour Middle School has 82%, or I got a score of an 82. They have 280 kids in their middle school, and their demographics are broken down here when we scroll up. So again, scroll over, you can see the name of the schools here. Seymour and Gresham, Wabeno, Bayfield, those have been on the list for a lot of years. Hayward is not usually on the list, so their percentage must have increased. There you can see our middle school and Red Creek Elementary, towards the top half, I guess, and then there's our high school, still down towards the bottom. So that, and again, you can see all those private schools or other schools that have alternate assessments or not applicable because they participate in the state assessment system. Any questions about those two spreadsheets?
Yeah, this data which you have shown us, that middle school and elementary in the middle and high school in the end, this is for the CISA. When Jeanette or other people talk about it, that we are in the bottom of the barrel, the schools around the Wisconsin, all schools, not CISA, then we are in the bottom of the barrel, maybe.
As a district we are, but not individual schools.
Yeah, all the schools of Wisconsin.
Correct, but if you look just by district, we are definitely down lower.
Yeah.
If you break apart individual schools, whether it's the whole state, whether it's CISA, whether it's those schools with higher Native American populations, whatever sort it is, if you do individual schools, our middle school and Red Creek are significantly higher than our high school. But if you sort just by district, you are correct.
Yes, just by the district. This is that I learned a new sentence in the town, bottom of the barrel. I say, are you guys talking about beer? They say no. This is in English phrase, it means we are in the end. As a district, as you say, not one individual school. But this is only data of CISA.
This one is CISA.
So it has only limited jurisdiction. Right? It has a limited jurisdiction. They don't cover Milwaukee or something.
Correct. So if you want the whole state, I can certainly do that. And if you want it by district, I can do that. This was just a sampling for you.
Yeah.
Because the point I'm trying to make is it's not an accurate system to say, it's not an accurate statement to say all of our schools are at the bottom. That's not an accurate statement. And I'm asking for more specificity when we're talking about our data.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. I want our teachers to be able to celebrate progress. I want them to feel, I want kids to feel when the kid comes to school, I don't want them to think I'm going to a failing district. I'm going to a school that's right smack in the middle, is what I want our kids to think.
High school student, teacher, this is the victory of internet. In a 1 second they can find out anything.
Or they think they do.
That easily they can punch it in the Google, top 10 schools or 20 schools district in Wisconsin. The Google don't take a 40 hours.
No.
In a one shot. So the victory goes to the internet. It has exposed the truth for the most part.
It exposed a version of the truth.
The version of the truth, and when we analyze it, we bring it to the meetings. Yes, you are right. As a school district, we are on the bottom of the barrel.
But you just went over data that you celebrated, so how did that work?
Mute for a second.
Those two schools doing great, but those data
Freeze.
are not
Freeze it.
aligning with this.
Freeze
Now
it,
we will
freeze
talk
it.
about it.
Thank you.
So if you look at it at the districts, when parents talk about if they decide to pull their children out of the school district, they are talking about the district as a whole, not any particular school. So when parents are saying, I'm gonna send my kid to a different neighboring school, it's because of the district, not because of a particular school. So when I refer to us being at the bottom or not where we should be at, that is the feedback. That is where we are as a district are located, is down below.
And
I'm not saying we're not the very bottom, but that.
And please understand that I'm not arguing with you. I'm asking you guys, as the most educated about the data of our district, to speak with more clarity than saying we're at the bottom of the barrel. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking for information and for you to consider being an ambassador for the district. And when someone says we're at the bottom of the barrel, perhaps you could offer, our elementary and middle school are really moving in the right direction, and I feel good about some of the stuff that's changing at the high school. Feels very different than, yeah, we really are. I don't blame you for leaving.
I'm not gonna lie to people.
It's the truth, Jeanette.
But
It's not a lie.
part of the truth. But when parents say the district, that is the district as a whole.
So I think it's important to recognize that the numbers tell part of the story. So
Correct.
I came from Minneapolis. The school I partnered with for my nonprofit had almost 100% refugee population. So those kids spoke 5 languages. They couldn't read. Okay. But their commitment, overall, they showed up at the very bottom, but they had the highest graduation rates. Well, why? Why is that? Because they had endured in these refugee camps, and they were so committed to being in education and being successful no matter what it took, that they ended up with the highest graduation rates, and some of those kids went to do amazing things. But that doesn't show up there. The bottom of the numbers at the bottom didn't suggest that they had overcome incredible life trials and tribulations at kindergarten, or that they could speak 5 languages, or that didn't show up. So this tells part of the story, but the rest of the story, it just doesn't. You have to think critically about, okay, what are the other factors that may not be transferable to all those different. They're all going to have a different story to tell. So I think it's important that we use the data as a guide, but we have to understand that the data too has its limits, and it's
And can we also understand that multiple things can be true,
Yeah.
right? It can 100% be
It usually is.
true that as a district, we are nowhere near where we want to be. And it is also true that our elementary and middle school are more in the middle and moving in the right direction. So I'm certainly not asking you to lie. I'm simply saying multiple things can be true at the same time. And sometimes, as ambassadors of the district, it's appropriate to share more information as opposed to feeding into a negative narrative that doesn't serve anybody.
I don't feed into the negative.
It wasn't an accusation.
But it is an accusation that was said. And we need to, when you want us to talk about our words, we need to watch what we say.
I'm sorry,
And how we say that.
I didn't mean to point that at you. I meant we've heard that multiple times tonight, and I've heard that from other people that were bottom of the barrel. So I simply am trying to give the board more information so that you can look at the data in multiple different ways. Was my whole purpose in including those two spreadsheets for everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything about those spreadsheets or that information?
No.
Okay, so Nicole is going to walk us through the district report card, because we haven't had it. You can unfreeze Jill and let me find the district.
So my intention is to kind of hit some highlights and some noticings. You ready? And answer any questions that you may have. So the first part, Jill, could you scroll just a tiny bit? I don't know, so that those circles just go a little bit higher. Just go down just a little.
Shelley, you still got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Even I'm looking at you to move it. Here I am. What
Yeah,
would
just
you like,
that,
Nicole?
just like that, right there.
Okay.
Okay,
So I'm like, I'm done. It's her turn.
I would love to start by talking about those circles where it says students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, those three circles across the top. So what we saw from the previous school year, from 2022 to 2023 to the 23-24 school year, is our economically disadvantaged population decreased from 59.1 to what you see on the board, 53.8. And so what happens when we see that change is it directly impacts that circle below where it says priority area weights. So when you look at that circle is what creates the overall district score. That's how we calculate it. It's all weighted, all these scores are. And so we have achievement and growth. And so the achievement score and the growth score, their weight changes depending upon that number for economically disadvantaged. So in the 22-23 school year, the achievement score was weighted at an 8.9 and the growth was weighted at 41.1. So there was a shift in the weights, achievement growth, and the purpose for that is it's supposed to help us see or compare districts in a more equitable way. And so,
So just to be clear, these top two pieces shift depending on which building you're looking at. So the state calculates what percentage of your total score is going to be based on your achievement and your growth based off of your demographics on top. So each school has a little bit different pie chart based off of the demographics of that school.
So without going into tons of the numbers and the algorithms and all the different ways and variables that calculates this overall score, I want to help you understand how it can be true on those previous slides that we saw that we are seeing this gap closing, and at the same time our overall score calculation has decreased and went down from the last report card to this one by 2.8 points. So in our last report card, we met expectations, and then there has been that decrease of 2.8, and now we're at meets few expectations. So just to go a little bit further, so if we scroll to this next area, the other thing that's happening in the state of Wisconsin, as Shelley said, is that they changed the cut scores, and so
That would affect only this block.
and it's only affecting the achievement side. And then I want to remind you that that achievement score, that 45.6, that's a 3-year weighted average. And that's a compilation of the Wisconsin Forward, ACT, pre-ACT, and it's because it's a 3-year, there's even the Aspire assessment, which is the pre-ACT replaced. The growth score, so just wanted to say overall, other things to notice, and so it's those 4 priority areas, and just things to notice is how significantly chronic absenteeism weighs into the score, how many times it shows up on that bottom. So you see it in that target group and the on track to graduation.
So again, right here, we see chronic absenteeism counts against us, and then over here, chronic absenteeism counts against us. And in Celebration, our graduation rate is 0.7% above the state average.
And so when we're thinking about chronic absenteeism, there's a ton of research around absenteeism. So a child is considered, or a student is considered chronically absent when they have missed 90% of the days of school.
10%.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that. When they have missed 10% of the days, so that, and then to get to that chronic absenteeism count, then you count the number of students who fit that definition. So when we're talking about the target group, that's another calculation that it's taking out. looking at the bottom 25th percentile in ELA and math according to those same assessments. And it's also looking at absenteeism to get into that group, that bottom 25th quartile.
So what the state does is they used to compare like our special ed kids' growth compared to special ed kids' growth from the rest of the state, our free and reduced compared to the rest of the state. What they do now is they take the bottom 25% of our students across each one of the areas, and they compare the growth and the movement of our most struggling students to the other 75% of our students. So it is all comparison within our district as opposed to the rest of the state. So they want to hold everyone accountable to constant forward progress, which is exactly the goal.
And this is something the state does. We can pull those names and look at who these students are. But you can see, that's 25% of our score. And at 9.7, that's super low. And then if you look at their growth, that's super low. And you look at that absenteeism, so we're way below the 9% rate with that 61. So just lots to think about there.
So if you are just interested in looking at the straight achievement, these are the scores. If you go down to the little table, this will show you previous years, but as we talked about, it would be artificial to say all students, last year we had 3.1% advance and this year we have 5.3% advance. That would be artificial because they redrew the line. So yes, we have more that are marked advance, but we don't know if that's true growth or if that is the lines moving.
And
so
the API remarks that you can't really compare. The other thing of notice is the change in names of the categories.
Right, because it's advanced, meeting, approaching, and developing as opposed to what it used to say. Thank you.
That bar changed, right? And we now have 5.3% of our kids that are above the bar, right?
That are advanced.
Is
So,
that right? So,
yep.
but wherever the bar is at, whichever level you're looking at. So I think that is actually a positive indicator, though, that across the state, as an average, we have more advanced kids than what we did before.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so the students who receive individualized reports, they receive the information with the language, the new language. So even though the achievement, so that's what students receive. So if they're advanced here, that's what they were told by the state of Wisconsin.
So these are charts that I think are interesting, and each school has their own version of it. They talk about value added, and we can dig a lot more into these. They say that a student just showing up and attending class at a 90% or higher should have a 3.0 in growth. And so populations that you have grown at or more than the value added score would be colored in blue. And so this is the district one. I did want to point out, let me just look for 1 second, I don't have it pulled up.
And this is for the first trimester?
Nope, this is for this test, and it would be just this test.
The 23-24 school year.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we've talked about the elementary school in Red Creek. I just want to show you our percent of students with disability is 25.5% at Red Creek. The state average is about 18%. So right now the population at Red Creek is well above the state average. And as we know, special education is not funded anywhere near what it should be funded. And so I just want to show, because when we were talking about delivery of services, I just thought this was pretty exceptional at Red Creek, that value added score. The two groups, this is in English or ELA, students with disabilities were at the value added in ELA, and then in math, students with disabilities was the highest value added group out of all of the subgroups at Red Creek. And so that is evidence that for the majority of the special ed students at Red Creek, the programming is value added to their outcomes. So,
and just of interest, so when we were talking about the cut scores and those changes, that doesn't impact this stuff because it's all within, because of the way they did it. Yeah, go deeper, but.
So lots and lots and lots of information here, and we can spend as much time or as little time going through each one. We always talk a little bit about this, that post-secondary preparation. I'm super proud of the CTE areas. You guys heard from 2 of them at a recent board meeting, and that's part of that dual enrollment. Over half of our high school kids, 51.5% are dual enrollment. That means that they've got some successful college credits already under their belt when they graduate high school, and that's almost double the state average. Advanced courses, we have quite a few advanced placement courses. We don't participate in the International Baccalaureate, but we're below average on that advanced placement. Mr. Shepard talked to you guys this summer about strategies that he has to increase participation in the advanced placement courses. And then you can see work-based learning, also above the state average, but below in the industry recognized credentials.
But those, we've figured out, so we have more industry recognized credentials than that, and I have worked with a group of other people, and that will be fixed on the next report.
Excellent. So do you have any questions?
Yeah, could you go on the first page?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1,603 students total.
Yeah.
Total in Black River Falls School District, right? 1,603.
Yep, the reason I was thinking is because I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just the students tested, because no students from Forest Street or second grade would be included, but we definitely don't have, that is the right number for last year.
Yeah, I remember 1,700 and something.
That's been a while. We've been in declining enrollment for years.
Yes. So total is 1,603. Could you please go down?
Mm-hmm.
That pie, it says 12%, 12.5 is achievement. Achievement means academic, education. So 12% have done good.
No, that's not a percentage of students. That's not a percentage of students, so that would not be a fair statement. What that is right here is our achievement scores. And so what this is telling, so the priority areas are achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and on track to graduation. What this percentage up here is telling you, they came up with this 56.7 by using 12.5% of it was this weighted score, 37.5% was this weighted score, and then the other two were each 25% of this total score. So these percentages are how much the score, these data points influence this score. It is not a percentage of people.
Okay. So, okay, forget about those 12% or something. So overall score from on the behalf of DPI is 56.7. So we just met few expectation, not a big deal, just a few. And then there's a bigger pie is growth. Nick, please tell us what is growth. I figured it out. Achievement means academic. What is growth?
I assuming it's like improvements. You know.
From one testing year to the next testing year.
What is growth?
I think they just covered it.
Your achievements.
Your improvement.
Achievement is education, academic.
This is all education.
So, in achievement, growth is embedded. Or growth is separate than achievement. You see that it says the growth 51.8% and achievement is 45.6. They're two different numbers. So I think so growth is different than the achievement.
Yes.
It clearly says there.
Yes.
Correct.
So what is growth? Achievement I understand.
So achievement is the
education.
level tested, right? The level you reach on the test, and growth is the improvement from last year to current year. So a student that is achieving lower has higher potential growth. A student that is achieving higher has a lower potential growth.
So that is a very scientific way of saying it. You are comparing from the past. Let's go to page number 3.
We have a meeting for this.
Right.
Could I just add in, just so that it's helpful, so it's a pretty complicated formula for growth, I think, which is what Dr. Carr's getting at, because I think that you did.
Yeah, I just want to talk page number 3, a few things, something unique has discovered. Page number 3.
This is.
More when you, yeah, yeah, right there. So last year or over the 30-40 years, they used to say that orange thing is below basic, and the yellow was the basic, and the purple was proficient, and the blue was advanced. Now they are saying, DPI is saying advanced, meeting, approaching, developing. No one is failing, no one is behind. We are doing the best in the world. It is very clear. Look at those words: advance, meeting, approaching, developing. Game over. Nobody is behind. Everybody is doing good. Years ago, if you see, I brought the last year's report, the same thing, a different words.
If we talked about that, they're right here.
Yeah, they're right here.
Yep.
We see in the past, they clearly says below basic,
Yes.
basic, proficient, and advanced. And 23-24, meeting, approaching. Of course, I'm 5 grade level behind. I'm approaching. Nothing wrong with it.
We just covered like for
Yes,
half hour.
but I invested so many days on these things. Now, could you please go up?
So
Let me make my point.
Is this what you wanted?
Yes. It clearly says only 1 year data is displayed as an assessment. What updated 23-24 performance by percentages cannot be compared with the prior years. This thing cannot be compared with the previous year. If you compare it, this is a fake.
yes, correct. Well, not.
So they are saying don't compare it. We come up with a new model and we are rock and roll. This is not fair deal. In my academic opinion.
So
The data has to be compared to talk about current data. You just cannot talk about it
Which is why
without
we did this.
comparing it.
Which is why we did this, because we agree. That's exactly why we did this, to compare the gap, because you can't compare. Just like over the course of those years, we went from taking the Badger assessment to the Wisconsin Forward assessment. They said the same thing. Don't compare last year to this year because they're two completely different tests. So during the course of those years, they change every once in a while.
So this time they changed the words,
Yes.
and nowhere in the board packet the definition of these words. What is the definition of meeting and approaching and developing?
Grade level.
There's a whole PDF
it's
on
a-
it.
No, I did find out individually. Each definition is so beautiful that not a single student is behind.
I don't think that's.
If you place it, the definition here, we will have a special meeting about it. This is very dangerous. If 3 grade level behind, you are saying approaching. Of course, you are approaching, no doubt about it. But why we? So these words are very
Iftikhar.
new for
To be
me.
clear, it wasn't up to this board to use.
This is up to the DPI.
Correct.
And they are different organizations. We are also government. We can put our step down and fix it. We will help every student.
So this is state testing, right? And it's
Yes,
evaluated on a state scale.
state scale.
Yeah, I don't think this board.
So
can
now we
change
will
that.
go to the middle school and I will.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I would like to
Oh,
have a
we're not
special.
going in the middle school. We're not talking about what is an agenda?
So again, right? We've talked about
That
this a
is
couple
against
times.
the Robert rules. Whatever in agenda must be talked.
So again, we talked about scheduling a special meeting in January where we can dedicate more time to this, right?
I won't be here.
Yeah, you.
The 27th, you said you would.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that night.
That's the date.
So that's.
That
when we
is
get to
for,
that,
we are
that's my-
talking
that's my hope.
about replacement of Amy Black deer.
Correct, but if there's,
And I-
depending on time, we could do both.
Okay.
We would never talk
And
about
then I have a plan. Then I have a plan. Whatever I read, middle and high school, why they are doing exceptionally good, and why these grades are not aligned with this. Therefore, I have a plan. I believe in these grades more than these. They are contradictory day and night. This is the best ever.
Right. Hold on now, your blood pressure's getting high.
My blood pressure is going high. Let's give me a pill. You are the doctor, help me.
I am not a doctor, I'm sorry.
You are a registered nurse.
I cannot prescribe.
Mr. Kerr, we would never talk about data if you weren't here. I mean, it just wouldn't be the same,
All right,
you know?
Okay.
so we're gonna continue on here. And we have that at the end of the agenda for this evening. I want to talk about scheduling a special meeting, which again, I hope it can be January 27th, and we can do both of those in one night. Next, we have 8.4.
What about 8.3?
We just
That
finished.
we just spent half an hour talking about it.
8.3 is this letter to Shelley Severson.
That's 8.4.
8.4?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we're on.
Okay, yeah. My bad, finally.
Okay. So this board was made aware of a complaint to the DPI. This is the letter to the district, specifically to Dr. Severson in response to the complaint. As you can see in there, as it says in several spots here, I gotta find the exact verbiage here. The district properly developed and implemented the student's IEP to address safety issues. The interaction was prompted by the complainant and does not constitute a failure of the district to implement the student's IEP. Next one here. In another one, no incident involving a restraint occurred. The district did not improperly utilize restraint with the child. And then the final paragraph, this concludes our review of the complaint. So we just want to close the loop on the feedback that we receive, right? So there you go. Any questions on this one?
Yes. This letter was written by DPI to Dr. Shelley Severson regarding some student about IEP, that student was missing for 12 minutes, and then they explain each and everything, how we have found the student, and that student was hiding in cubbies and other things, and they detected through GPS
Correct.
technology.
That is the incident question, yes.
Yes. So I read this whole document is very well written. I bet their attorneys have written it. So we are clear.
Correct.
We know we are not guilty.
Correct.
Okay. Are we? I would say a superintendent must visit these individuals and diffuse the situation, bring that individual back to school. I am doing it. I am like, what you folks call, I reach out to the people who reach out to me. I always say, meet with me in a quick trip, meet with me in your house, meet with me anywhere, come to me. I'm always here for you. So I made my position clear to them. I'm a kind of guy never beg, but it is a very small student, this complaint. I beg them to bring back in our school district. We have an expert of IEPs. They are far better than any regular teacher. And they are very expensive teachers. They are not like a regular teachers, IEP teachers. And they are difficult to find on the first place, IEP teachers. So hopefully they will accept my begging program to bring your kid into the school, and we will help better. So I would request to all board members, reach out to them, go to their houses. Also Shelley Severson, go to their houses. Why we are uppity up? We are nobodies, we are their servant. So this is all I say after reading these 4 pages. We must not give up on that kid. We will help.
If I could just share,
I'm done though, now you can share.
Okay, thank you. The state has a mediation process for special education, and I have requested the family to participate in that mediation process, and they were not interested, and I didn't get a response, to be honest, so I'm assuming that they're not interested. I think they were waiting for, I think somebody shared that they were waiting for DPI to make a decision, and so we've tried to use the state process because I think that is about as neutral as we possibly can be, and I certainly hope I don't come off as uppity, I think is the word that you use.
Uppity, I'm learning these words.
Okay.
Our president of United District of Black River Fall, Predab, could reach out to their house, talk to them. Go to the people. They came out, all of them, stand in a line and vote for you.
What makes you think we don't?
Oh, you do? Oh, you do. I
What
know.
makes you think
Amy Black Deer do. I know her.
So
She
continuing
does.
on, speaking of IEPs, Melanie Floyd is going to talk to us tonight about IEPs.
So as we talk about what an IEP meeting is and what it consists of, I have a copy of a sample IEP. It's for Captain America. It'd be really cool if Captain America was actually in our district. But it's just a sample so you can see what these forms look like in case you've never seen an IEP before. No, you can keep it. There's nothing that needs to be blacked out or in it. You can keep it if you want to go play with it. So we're going to talk about what an IEP meeting is. So 3 purposes really. One is to develop an individualized education plan, which is literally that document there. It's to ensure that the teachers and staff have legal compliance within the IDEA federal law, and then to promote collaboration between families and the school districts and other staff that might work with their student. Once an initial eligibility is determined, and so after the first meeting, you determine eligibility every 3 years, and we talked about that eligibility criteria last time. So who attends an IEP meeting? I'll tell you that every single IEP meeting looks different. There are standard staple members that are legally required to be at a meeting. Those up there, so the parent's guardian, general ed teacher, the special ed teacher, the district local education authority, which is either a principal or Shelley or myself. Related services are all of the like visually impaired teachers and physical therapists, occupational therapists,
Sometimes
mobility
speech and language.
Yep. And then the student. Those are all of the required members of an IEP team. Once a student turns 14, they really should be part of that meeting, because what happens is they start talking about what happens after high school, what do they want to do, and what can the school do to partner with the student to help them achieve those goals. And those goals really differ from student to student. So you could have students that want to go to university, and so we're preparing classes and getting them ready to be successful at university. There are some students that we're preparing for independent living, and so the range is all of those things in between, and it's differentiated to that particular student.
And Melanie, we got a pretty high percentage of IEPs within the district. Then what percentage of the students actually participate in their IEP, would you say? You know, I know you say 14 is the age where you'd like them to be, but I mean, as they're coming through the ages, is it relatively high? I don't need a
Yeah, I'll just tell you, this
percent?
is just my gut reaction off of, it's definitely higher when we get up to middle school and high school. Generally, kids want a voice in the plans, and we like to know how programming's going and things like that. And so I would say that the percentage of students at the middle school and high school that participate is much higher. I would say in the 90s. There are sometimes students are out sick or something happens and they don't participate, but we really do a lot to try to get them there. At the elementary level, I'll just say this, there are some families, and sometimes it's, I would say it's always encouraged, but we push students to come to the IEP meeting and tell how things are going, and They do a really great job even with our littlest kids about asking what their favorite parts of school are. And I'll tell you at like Forest Street, hearing what their favorite parts of school are is pretty interesting, entertaining, so.
And then they may not stay for the whole meeting, right? Some of the
Yeah.
younger ones, they come in for a first intro and then head out.
So, and then another note on who attends IEP meeting, while not a required member of the team, parents can invite whoever they want. So there are advocates that can attend. Sometimes those are county social workers. Sometimes they're advocates from the Ho-Chunk Nation or from a program called WISPY. Sometimes it's mental health therapists or doctors. Whoever the parent wants to bring in, they have the right to bring in too. So this is a sample agenda. I would say that these are the things that legally have to be gone over in a meeting. And this is how most IEP meetings flow. That you introduce who's at the table, talk about the student's strengths, talk about concerns, parents share concerns. We talk about present levels, how the student is doing in school, how the student is behaving, how the student is functioning at school. We review the current goals, and then we set new goals, and we determine new services and supports. We talk about what accommodations that student needs to access the curriculum, what accommodations do they need for testing, and then we have a conversation if they're 14 or older about their transition plans. And again, that is, what do you want to do post high school? Last year you said that you wanted to be a hairdresser. Is that still true, or did that change, or do we need to shift courses? And then we talk about placement, and placement in LRE. That's the least restrictive environment, and so we want to have them in the environment where they're typically developing peers as much as possible, that they can access that curriculum. So after the IEP meeting, a couple things always happen by law. So finalized copy of the IEP. What comes to the IEP meeting is a draft, because that's a collaborative conversation between the staff and family to come up with all of those plans and goals. So after the meeting, a finalized copy is shared, and then the special education teacher and myself make sure that that plan is implemented with fidelity, and then the teacher monitors progress and then communicates that progress with parents. Here in the district, we communicate that progress out at report card time through progress reports.
Ma'am, could you go one slide back?
Sure.
What is the meaning of Fidelity is a company?
It is, but in this instance, we're talking about the plan that's on paper, like Captain America's plan there, that's implemented as it's written on the paper.
That means, that word means that?
Yep.
Okay, not the banking or
Not
company.
banking, no banking here.
It's not the green stripe on the
Means you
side.
can't change a thing. You have to be exactly
Exactly.
as it is.
Just the one word changed the whole meaning. No, thank you for explaining.
So I've got a bunch of statistics for you. So based off of some questions that we had discussed last time, I'll just tell you kind of some popcorn statistics here in Black River Falls. So last year, when we looked at our whole school year, we had 19.4% of our students were in special education. About 70% were white students, 27% were Native American, and then it drops way down. It goes down to 2% for Black, 2% for 2 or more races, and even less than 1% for Hispanic students. We had 554 events, which means events are things like an annual IEP meeting, an initial evaluation to determine eligibility for special education, a review, revise IEP meeting, a reevaluation, or a special meeting that's called a manifestation determination meeting. Our special education staff processed 554 of those events last
And
year.
176 student days. Wow. Wow.
And multiple staff each meeting.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Then
Multiple
we
staff
have,
at meeting. There's times I'm at an
I think
IEP
we've
with
got
a
5
principal, a director,
elementary,
I
well, at
mean,
Red Creek,
a
5
lot
at
of
the
staff
middle
heavy.
school and 5 at the high school, and then there's Like basically 5 at each school, I think.
Man.
Roughly, the number of teachers at
So
each
it's
building.
3 days. And that's, so how long do those take on average, like?
So an initial
Wide range.
eval and a re-eval takes about 3 hours if you're putting the IEP meeting in with it. Just an annual IEP meeting takes about an hour to get through the required pieces. A manifestation determination review takes about an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2.
So when do you do the rest of your job?
And there are a few cases that the meeting takes a lot longer depending on the number of auxiliary services or people that come in. There are times when an annual IEP has 15 people sitting around the table and it's 3 hours and
Am I correct in that in some instances too, you guys would do virtual to allow?
I will say that is one of the blessings that came out of COVID is that it kind of changed the way that we can engage with families, and it allows people to come to the table to have that conversation when there's barriers in the way. So yes, we absolutely, we want, and in fact the law says that we have to strive to have all of those required parties at the table for meetings, and so that's a great
we've increased the amount of parents attending the meeting because we offer them virtually. They're a required player, but if they don't come and you document your 3 attempts, you can still go ahead with the meeting. And so there were sometimes parents said, I can't come, just do it without me. And now with the virtual option, we've increased the percentage of times parents are engaged, which is fantastic.
387 students had an IEP last year out of our, I think it was 1,500 and some students. We did 89 of it. This is interesting to me. So last year, and I can put together a chart in the future. Last year we had 89 initial evaluations, which means that 89 students were referred to special education for the first time. Out of those 89 initial evaluations, 48 of them did not qualify, which means they were not found to have a disability. 38 qualified, and then 3 of those they denied consent, which means that we can't move forward in the evaluation process because the parent did not give consent to move forward. And so 22 students, this was a question that was asked last time, 22 students returned to general education, meaning that they graduated out of their special education services and were no longer to be found to be a student with a disability. And then last year's graduating class of students, 17 students graduated last year, which is 85% of our students in special ed last year graduated. Only 1 student dropped out. 2 were retained, they stayed. So if you're a student with an IEP and it's in the student's best interest, they can receive educational services until they're 21 if they haven't reached the graduation requirements. 1 transitioned to homeschool, and then 1 family revoked consent, so they were no longer considered a special education student. That's what I got for data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for today or next time?
No, it says thank you. That is a good one. I like it. IEP is challenging. They are exceptionally good teachers. I consider myself, and I have so many awards in different countries about my teaching skills, but I am not compared to IEP teacher. They have like amazing skills. You are IEP teacher too, or you just the head honcho for all of them?
No, I have a background in special education as well.
So you the number 1. I cannot file a motion right now.
No 10,000 for you.
No, unless I see those numbers. Look at those numbers. I don't know why you are not proud of it.
I'd say 85% graduation rate is quite good to be proud of.
And that's
number of kids.
or I wouldn't say 4-year graduation rate. Some of them are longer than 4 years. Yeah, sorry.
But
Yes.
85 graduation, 85%
kids with IEPs graduate, so
Our special ed staff.
350 to 387 will likely graduate.
Say that again.
Our special ed staff is amazing and works really hard with those students to help them gain the skills, right, and the credits. Because it's conflicting sometimes, right, to gain the credits plus gain those skills, right? They are masterful and making that happen.
Yeah.
So
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is available for energy
All right.
report card.
So next we have our monthly expenditures. And Eric Gar can see why we don't have $10,000 to give our principals.
I filed a motion, you folks didn't, you seconded. Nobody seconded.
You can't second it, Mr. Carter. We've already made a motion to.
You just against me. You guys are against me.
How did I give to you?
So back to the task at hand. Monthly expenditures are in your board packet.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jake.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
no one opposed.
All right, we have the November meeting minutes and the annual meeting minutes. Again, both in the packet. If there are no changes, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, district admin report.
I don't have anything tonight, everything was shared.
Okay. WSB, other conference, workshops. We have the WSB. Oh,
You
that's
heard
good.
this listening session for education, that was interesting. And the childcare might not have been such a bad idea.
All right, upcoming school board connection opportunities.
Concerts are all happening, but
Right now.
I wanted to share for the record why others weren't here. Mr. Nortman is helping out with the middle school band and choir concert tonight. Mr. Dar has his children's Christmas program tonight elsewhere. So just wanted you to know why they were not here.
Is it possible to like work around those? Because I mean, like I'm missing mine right now. My kiddos. So in the future, can we like December just be a little bit strategic about the planning of meetings, or is that not?
We
Yeah,
can.
we
The
have to make a motion next
music.
year to move the date.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it'll come down to, so.
Yes.
Yeah, because we've moved dates in the past. So.
Yep.
Okay, schedule a special meeting in January. So what we had talked about, I guess maybe my hope is that we're gonna seat that new board member, and Shelley and I will look into the exact, when the actual seat, when they take that seat.
February meeting maybe, or what?
I have to look, I don't know if they vote that evening. We'll consult with council and ensure we're doing it correctly.
Like, do they get the oath right away that night and they're a voting member, or do they get to sit that night and not vote and then take the oath next time? I'm just not sure of that process. We haven't done it in a couple of years.
Do it like we did, like you would normally with a,
Yeah, where you
Did
guys
they
took the oath
board,
one time
and
and
then you start your first board meeting would be in.
And that's kind of unique to us. So
Yeah.
some boards schedule their May meeting such that the new board members swear in and take that
Start
seat
that
that
way.
first, because they legally assume the seat the first Monday in May, right? Am I-
April, last Monday in
April.
April. It's the last
Last
Monday
Monday
in
in
April.
April, I'm sorry,
And so
yes.
some people move their April
Meeting.
board meeting to the last Monday in April so that they can be sworn in. That's statutory language that you start officially the last Monday. It is our policy to have our board meeting the third Monday. We could just as easily do it the fourth Monday.
And it's something we can talk about as a board as well, because there is that awkward, like they take the oath, right?
Thanks.
Familiar with this? Yeah, you take the oath and then you take your seat or go home as you see fit and then become a voting member the following meeting. So we can also talk about that this spring as well,
Yeah.
but
I think so at least 1,500 will apply, the way I'm getting the vibes. For any
what?
black year,
1,500.
1,500 applicants.
Vibes, gotcha, okay.
well, if that happens,
Will accommodate everybody.
if that happens, we will not get to the data that night. We will make a decision that evening, but I would like to schedule or put, I guess, we'll create the agenda as such if everyone agrees that we will do the appointment of the new board member that evening, followed by, we can look at the DPI report card data that evening as well. If we have a ton of applicants and it runs long, then we will simply have to adjourn and reschedule. So it could take an hour and a half to get through the first process, and then we have some time, or it could take 3 hours, and then I don't think anyone wants to dive into that at 9 o'clock at night. So.
I don't think it's responsible too.
What's that?
I don't think it's responsible.
No. So, any opposition to scheduling those both on the 27th?
No,
So,
Yeah, and if you
I'm
get one
never opposite
candidate,
of
it's not gonna take very long.
right,
You
absolutely.
know, but you don't know that.
Right, we have no way of knowing until we close them on the,
Zero
what was it,
or
the 27th.
1,500, like you said, you know.
Right, yep.
That's all
Approximately 1,500. I'm applying too.
I'm thinking closer to zero, but you know, just saying.
Closer to zero than 1,500.
So the
We're
board,
in the middle.
sitting board member cannot apply.
I don't understand why you would.
Already done.
No, his term is going to be ending, so he can apply.
Or we could run for reelection. Yes, all of those could happen.
A sitting board member could not.
Could not
Oh,
apply.
no.
You don't get an extension without getting voted.
So just a reminder that we'll have to figure out a clerk to.
Correct,
Oh,
yep.
thank you.
Yes, we should probably hold a partial reorganization meeting that evening then?
Okay.
Is that, do we need to, and maybe I'm looking at Marty for this one, can we gap that until the 27th? Is there anything that the clerk needs to?
I have a couple of things that need a clerk's signature.
Can the
Can-
board
can
president
someone
sign? Can someone else sign in proxy or no?
What was it, Marty? So, like, there's a budget report module that needs a clerk's
That can
signature.
wait. That
It can wait?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's just for our file.
That's the only thing I have right now that
Yeah.
needs a signature. We should be okay then until we do a reorganization.
Yeah, we can't, I mean, the soonest, if we need to reorganize, the soonest we can do it is the 20th. I mean, unless we call this special meeting between now and the 20th to need to reorganize, but
You want to reorganize prior to the new board member?
I don't want to, I'm
Yeah.
saying. I would rather get the new board member on and then take care of,
Yep.
it would be a full reorganization, but it,
Filling the clerk position.
right.
Also do a reorganization in February.
Well,
Or at that
do
January
that
27th if
same,
we can.
yeah, because that's, I mean, if it's just one officer, it should be quick, right? I mean, that's, okay. We have a couple future agenda items. Anything else to add?
No, I know this is getting late in the evening here, but for like the district, all the concerts that are last week, this week, and the special educators to help to put that stuff on. Really nice achievements to see those youth coming up and not being afraid to be in front of people, because that was one of the scariest times I ever had when I was a kid, was having to go to those things. So it's great to see that, and we appreciate all the extra hours that go into that and the people that help to run it behind the scenes, which is why our IT is getting filled in by Nicole tonight, I'm sure. But all those people go unrecognized a lot, and it doesn't happen without them. So we recognize that as a board, and thank you for that.
For future agenda, there are 3 future agendas, but you did not put it for several board meetings. One future agenda, now you can put it, that public comment should be telecast so I can revisit what those folks were talking about. Any folks. So I cannot revisit. Sometimes people record it here and they send me. It's good to see my own on the YouTube. So this is in the future agenda. We can visit again and vote again. Allow public comment, which is only designed for the elected officials, to be telecast so we can revisit.
So that we do have that on the list. We are trying to keep the agendas
Okay.
fairly short, right? We're over 3 hours.
Yeah,
At this
because
point.
we have another top secret meeting earlier, 2 hours, so
Right. Yep.
so 5 hours.
Right, and that's why we're trying to keep this reasonable, because we're now on the 5th hour of meetings, so, yes. All right, if there's nothing else, I will move to adjourn.
I second it. I did
All those in
second.
favor?
Aye.
You're adjourned at 5 p.m.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you have a fantastic holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Oh, how are you?
He is-
Some